We're live.
Thank you, Cynthia, and perfect timing. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Township of North Dumfries Public Planning Meeting. We have 4 Committee of Adjustment applications for this evening and 4 public meetings. Ashley, can you mute everyone, please? Members of the public who have registered before the registration deadline for all items have been provided with a link and telephone number to join the virtual meeting this evening and have indicated to staff which applications they would like to participate in. Staff will move these individuals who have registered into the meeting to speak in order of the applications being heard. It's due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Region Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds. Township public meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public who have been provided with following methods to watch and participate in this open meeting electronically. First off, watch the live stream by accessing the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need a YouTube account to watch the live stream. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. The second option is members of the public who are interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to an item or to submit the request in writing to the Clerk's Division at clerk@northdumfries.ca before 7 p.m. on Monday, March 22nd. A link and telephone number has been provided to those who registered before the registration deadline. And lastly, members of the public who wanted to comment on a particular item but were not available to attend the meeting virtually were invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which would then be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting. I'd like to now call the meeting to order and approval of the agenda, please, Ms. Sage.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman that Council adopt the March 23rd, 2021 public meeting agenda as presented, and that all correspondence circulated to Council in advance of this meeting and made publicly available on the Township's website will form part of the public record for this meeting of Council. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Councilors, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will do the next motion adoption of the minutes, please, of February 23rd.
So moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Osner that Council approve the public planning meeting minutes dated February 23rd, 2021. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. We will now have a motion to adjourn and to sit as Committee of Adjustment.
Moved by Councillor Osner, seconded by Councillor McCreary that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:03 p.m. to sit as Committee of Adjustment for the purposes of holding public meetings pursuant to the provisions of the Planning Act. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Now we will pause while our staff prepare the people that are coming in for the application 1223 Maple Manor Drive.
Perfect. And before that, we do have a motion for the Committee of Adjustment minutes.
Oh, I apologize. Please go ahead.
No problem. Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rollman that the Committee of Adjustment approve the minutes dated February 23rd, 2021. Mayor Foxton, your vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And now we will prepare the meeting for 1223 Maple Manor Road Drive.
So I am noticing that a lot of the names that are showing up are for the application for 60 Water Street. Are we still moving forward with Maple Manor right now?
Maple Manor is right now, yes.
Okay. Just making sure. Okay.
Sarah, I'm not sure we're ready yet. Ashley, are we ready to go? Have everybody been moved?
Yes.
Thank you. So first off, I'd like to state that notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended, and or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. Sarah, the Planner GIS Technician, who will be presenting the application tonight. Sarah, you please present.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is minor variance application file number A0421 for 1223 Maple Manor Road, applied for by Sean and Rubina Chandler. So the purpose of the meeting is to solicit comments from members of the public and agencies to the proposed minor variance application, and a recommendation in terms of the next steps in implementation will form part of tonight's public meeting for the committee's consideration. The subject property is located at 1223 Maple Manor Road in the Ranchland settlement area. So a single detached dwelling with an attached garage currently exists on the property, which is highlighted in red on this map. The lot area is approximately 0.87 acres with a corresponding lot frontage of about 29 meters on the south side of Maple Manor Road and a lot depth of about 122 meters. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of the general zoning bylaw to construct two accessory structures, which are a detached garage and a shed, which exceed the maximum permitted lot coverage for accessory structures, and to allow the garage to be built 6 inches taller than the bylaw permits. The subject property is zoned as Z2A, which is rural residential, in the general zoning bylaw 68983. A dwelling unit and accessory uses are permitted land use activities within this zone. The proposed shed is 12 feet by 12 feet, or 3.66 meters by 3.66 meters, for an overall size of 13.4 meters squared, or 144 square feet. It is proposed to be 4.2 meters in height. The proposed garage, which the elevations can be seen here, is 9.14 meters by 15.24 meters, or 30 feet by 50 feet, for an overall size of 139.4 meters squared, or 1,500 square feet. The height is proposed to be 5.36 meters, which is 17 feet 6 inches in height. The eastern portion of the existing driveway is proposed to be extended to access this detached garage. So the variances that are being requested is to increase the lot coverage for accessory structures from the existing provision of 3% up to 4.44% to allow both the shed and the detached garage, and to increase the maximum height of the detached garage only from 5.2 meters to 5.4 meters. There is a site plan here underneath this chart showing the existing kind of U-shaped driveway here, the existing house and deck. This portion of the driveway will be extended to access the garage located in the southeast corner of the property. The applicant is proposing a pool in the future, and the shed would be located to the rear of that pool. They are at the same time proposing a new septic system. Currently, the septic system is located, I believe, somewhere over here, which is in the way of the driveway, and they need to upgrade the system anyway, so they will be moving it so that access to the rear of the property can be achieved. So this is the view of the property from Maple Manor Road. As you can see, this is the existing dwelling here. The western driveway access is about here. This is the eastern access, and the proposed detached garage is about here. So this is a view from the rear yard of the property towards the south, looking approximately where the location is proposed, which is in this area. And I just kind of superimposed the elevation of the front, and this is approximately what it would look like. It's not 100% accurate to scale, but this is the best I can do. So this is an idea of what it would look like once developed. So in terms of the planning analysis, the application needs to meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. The first is, does the proposed variance conform with the general intent of the zoning bylaw? So the intent of the zoning bylaw is to regulate the land uses and controls with respect to the placement of buildings on land. Excuse me. The subject lands are zoned Z2A, which is rural residential, in the general zoning bylaw, and a dwelling unit and accessory uses, including a shed and detached garage, are permitted land uses within this zone. Number 2, does the proposed variances conform with the general intent of the official plan? The subject lands are located within the ranch land settlement area, as illustrated on map 2.19, and rural area and protected countryside, as illustrated on map 7 of the official plan, and residential uses are permitted activities within all of these designations. Number 3, are the variances minor in nature? So the maximum lot coverage provision is intended to restrict the size of accessory structures to ensure that there's an appropriate balance between the built form and the open space, recognizing the provision of the remaining open space at the rear of the property, in addition to the existing deck and proposed future pool. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed increase in lot coverage will not negatively impact the amenity space of the property, and that the variance is minor in nature. The maximum height provision for the accessory structures is, well, the detached garage specifically, is to ensure that these structures are not more prominent than the principal dwelling. The proposed increase of 0.2 meters is extremely minor and will not be discernible from its location, which is approximately 97.5 meters from the street line. Additionally, with its proposed location in the southeast corner, it will not interfere with or impact the amenity space of adjacent properties. And number 4, are the proposed accessory structures in keeping with the character of the surrounding neighborhood? Given the large property size, the proposed location of the garage, which is set back significantly from the street line, and the relative size of other accessory structures on the neighboring properties, the increased lot coverage would not result in incompatible development of the property. In terms of consultation, we circulated the notice as per the Planning Act, and no correspondence was received from members of the public. From agencies, we received no objections from the GRCA, Energy Plus, or the Region of Waterloo. The Public Works Department commented that if modifications to the existing entrances are required or requested, that a permit must be obtained from the township, and that a lot grading plan will be required at the time of a building permit. The building department also commented that the accessory structure cannot be utilized to run a business out of or as a secondary dwelling. That permits will be required for the accessory structures, pool, and new septic system. Compliance with the Ontario Building Code and all municipal bylaws will be required at the time of permitting, and that a grading plan and survey will be required at the time of permits. K-Smart Engineering commented that the construction of the garage will reduce grass area and increase rainfall runoff from the roof, and that he would suggest that the owner provide additional information regarding grading and runoff direction. In terms of a staff recommendation, based on the planning analysis, staff recommend that minor variance A-04/21 for 1223 Maple Manor Road be approved as follows. Relief from section 8.3.7A of General Zoning Bylaw 689-83 to permit the maximum floor area of all accessory buildings to exceed 3% of the total lot coverage to a maximum of 4.4% total lot coverage, and relief from section 8.3.7B of General Zoning Bylaw 689-83 to permit the maximum height of the proposed detached garage to exceed 5.2 meters or 17.06 feet to a maximum height of 5.4 meters, 17.72 feet, subject to the following condition. The proposed accessory building shall not exceed a gross floor area of accessory buildings shall not exceed a gross floor area of 154 square meters or 1,507 square feet. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Can you shut your screen off, please? Thank you very much. And I believe Sean and Rubina Chandler would like to speak. They are the applicants. Are they here? There they are at the bottom. Sean, if you would like, and Rubina, if you'd like to unmute, please. And you have the floor.
Okay. I'm just starting our video. Sorry. This
Good
is
evening.
us. Good evening. So I don't know if we have anything much to say, but we did want to be here present in case anybody had any questions or concerns. We know that the grading was discussed in the documentation that we received, and I think we have a good plan for how the site grading would work well with our property. There's a pretty substantial grade to our land, and there's an existing swale on the property that our water will continue to flow into, even with the construction of the new garage.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Rubina. Councilors, any questions or comments? I noticed in one of the pictures, Sean, that there was a trailer, looks like a 24 or 25-foot trailer in the back there with a bit of a overhang roof type thing. Is that what is that just storage, or what is that?
There's a shipping container that we purchased when we bought the house to store some of I have a motorcycle hobby and stuff like that. So everything is kind of stuck into a shipping container, and some of our tractor stuff is in there as well.
Until we get the shop built.
Yeah.
We're just shoving things in there. This is a
Okay.
temporary. We used to have a temporary one
But it blew
made
away.
out of fabric, and it blew in a storm a couple years ago on top of our roof. So yeah, we got something that was not movable by the wind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If I see no questions, can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that PD report number 13-2021 be received, and that minor variance application A-04-21, being a request to seek relief from general zoning bylaw 689-83 to permit a maximum floor area of all accessory buildings be 4.4% of the total lot coverage to facilitate the construction of a larger detached garage and shed, where section 8.3.7A of the bylaw states that the maximum floor area for accessory buildings for zone 2A is 3% of total lot coverage, and B, the maximum height of the proposed detached garage to be 5.4 meters, where section 8.3.7B of the bylaw states that the maximum height of the accessory building is 5.4 meters, be approved, subject to the following. 1, the proposed accessory building shall not exceed a gross floor area of 154 meters squared. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you very much, and have a good night, folks.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time.
Can we move in the next members that are coming? The next one is 1154 Swan Street Air. Please advise when you're ready.
Okay, you're good to go.
Thank you. Report number PD 14-2021, consent application for 1154 Swan Street, file number B808/20, B-09/20, B-11/20, and B-12/20. In accordance with the Planning Act, notice was given. The Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended on and/or registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. I'd like to introduce now Shahid Megal, planner, who will be presenting this application. Shahid, please. Shahid, have you got your mic on? Are you muted?
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So tonight I'm presenting the 4 consent application B09, B10, B11, and B12/20. The consent application is regarding 1154 Swan Street. The subject property is located within built-up area community of air, which is municipally addressed 1154 Swan Street. The property is approximately 3,433 square meter in size, with a lot frontage of 50.77 meter on Swan Street. The subject property is serviced by municipal water and sanitary services. As you can see on the picture, the subject property currently contains single detached dwelling and detached garage. The northern portion of the property contains an easement in favor of Enbridge Gas for the purpose of high pressure gas transmission pipeline. And the balance of the property you can see have a landscape grass and contains several mature trees. Staff also reviewed provincial policy document, regional statutory document, and township statutory document as well. Provincial policy statement encourage intensification and high density in the settlement area. And that's also stated the settlement area shall be the focus of growth and development. Growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe also state direct growth to settlement area and encourage development through intensification within built-up area. The growth plan also encourage intensification, as I mentioned, generally in the settlement area, support housing choices through the achievement of minimum intensification and density target, and identifying a diverse range and mix of housing option and densities. Following the provincial statutory document, the regional official plan also encourage intensification in a built-up area. The subject property identified as a within as I mentioned, the built-up area, and it's also stated that specific to the North Dumfries, the regional municipality of Waterloo has assigned a target of new intensification redevelopment dwelling unit 552 residences by 2031 within the built-up area of Ayr. The township official plan also state that we will encourage the provision of new dwelling unit in built-up area in the Ayr urban area through infill, conversion, intensification, or redevelopment compatible with the surrounding uses. And development within urban residential and ancillary designation is intended to accommodate an appropriate range and mix of housing in terms of density and affordability to satisfy the long-term needs of the township. Currently, the subject property is zoned as Zone 2 urban residential, Z2 permit residential dwelling unit, which may also include secondary dwelling and accessory use as well. The current Zone 2A required a minimum lot area 0.4 hectare, which is 4,000 square meter, and a minimum lot frontage with 30 meter. Let me share the proposed plan. As you can see on the screen, the severance sketch. The applicant proposed 2 semi-detached in the form of 4 freehold residential units, which you can see on the sketch, lot 1A, 1B, 2A, and lot 2B. The proposed lot line dividing the semi-detached dwelling would along the common wall. The proposed lot would be varied in sizes from appropriate 556 square meter to 1,742 square meter in size, and corresponding lot frontage of 8.5 meter to 25.27 meter. As you can see, there are 3 lots. The lot frontage are 8.5 meter. The 4th lot is 9.14, but that's also incorporated the easement block. So that'd be approximately 25.27 meter in width. Easement is also proposed on the northern portion of the property to recognize the existing Enbridge gas pipeline corridor within the reconfigured lot boundary. The existing residence currently, as I mentioned, there's also a single detached dwelling and accessory structure on the property, so that will be removed to accommodate the proposed development. Each proposed dwelling unit is to have driveway access onto Swan Street. So, and each lot will be serviced by the municipal water and sanitary sewer. The zoning bylaw amendment application also proposed. So the applicant also submitted zoning application concurrently with the with the consent application, because currently it's a zone 2A. So to accommodate the future or proposed development, the rezoning is required from zone 2A to zone 5A. And that's why applicant is proposing also submitted the zone change application concurrently with the consent application to rezone the property from zone 2A to zone 5A. And they will also zone the easement block as an open space to facilitate the easement block. Following the public consultation process, the staff also notify the adjacent property owner. So far, I mean, we haven't received any public comments and concern regarding this application. The staff also circulate the sufficient package to agencies and department. As you can see, the regional staff have expressed no concern. And they also mentioned that prior to the final approval, the applicant need to complete the required access permit, complete a lot getting plan, and enter into a registered development agreement with the region of Waterloo to include noise watering clause in all agreement of offer of purchase and sale, lease and rental agreement for both the severed and retained lands. The Energy Plus provided the standards coming that they require the legal survey, and that we can be responsible for 100% of the cost to service the new lot and relocate the upgrade services. Waterloo Catholic District School Board, they mentioned that the education development charges shall be collected prior to issuance of building permit. Grand River Conservation Authority expressed no concern. Public Works Department expressed no concern. The Township Consulting Engineer, they mentioned, they commented at the time of building permit application, proponent to provide a site grading plan and servicing plan prepared by an engineer. They also required soil assessment is to show suitability for infiltration. As no drainage onto adjacent land is allowed, swales are to be constructed along property line to direct surface water towards Swan Street. So staff, in consideration of a future report on the merits of the consent application, will consider all comments and correspondence received through public consultation process. The staff will also consider the provincial interest matter regarding promote efficient development and land use pattern, the adequate provision of full range of housing, affordable housing, orderly development, and the appropriate location of growth and development. Staff will also consider whether the proposed development is aligned with the official plan and general zoning bylaw. Staff will also consider the suitability of the land for the purpose for which the land are to be severed, including dimension and shape of the proposed lot. Is the proposed development is desirable for the property and compatible with the adjacent properties? Staff will also consider appropriate mechanism to ensure responsive site development such as architecture control, tree preservation, access, grading plan, visual impact, and height scale. So all that kind of architectural elements will be considered during the analysis of this proposed development. Staff will also consider the pedestrian vehicular movement and linkages and parking requirement, and landscape setback and buffering of the proposed and existing development, and traffic generated by surrounding land uses and the proposed development. So the staff is recommending that all comments and correspondence received from the member of public and government agencies through consultation process be returned to staff for the future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Shahid. I believe, Brandon, you want to make a presentation as well?
Yes, please. I just have a few comments. So I'd prepared just a brief presentation to piggyback on the comments provided by Mr. Mughal. Does the clerk have my presentation, or do I share my screen?
You can share your screen, but if you have any issues or technical issues, we can share it as well.
Okay, just give me 1 second here. I just have a brief presentation to go over a few matters. Here we go. Let's expand that. Go to this. Okay, well, can you see my presentation screen?
Yes, yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, well, thank you. Good evening. My name is Brandon Flewelling. I'm the planning consultant to the applicant. And I just wanted to provide a few comments to supplement the comments we've heard from the staff report already. So what is proposed are 2 semi-detached dwellings. Before you on the screen is a line elevation of what the proposed dwellings would look like in the event when they're developed. They will be built and sold by Willow Homes. Willow Homes have a history of development in the community of Air and have built some very similar units just north of this property on the opposite side of Swan Street. And I have some representative photos of that. And then also they were had developed a condominium along Butte Street in the township. So it's a well-known developer to the township. So proposed is the elevation. They would be semi-detached units. So there'd be 2 buildings looking generally like this. Each semi-detached unit would be approximately 2,400 square feet. So quite large in size for a semi-detached unit. They would have a single car garage. And it's proposed that they likely be set back into the site a little bit further to allow for a longer length driveway to accommodate 2 vehicles onto the or in front of the home if possible. The homes are intended to be sold. They're intended to be owner occupied. They're not intended to be rental housing. Mr. Mughal did a good presentation or a good summary of the proposed consent application. As he noted, there is a zone change required along with this. And when committee closes and goes back into council later, you'll see this same application come back, but for the zone change portion. And I will be available for questions at that time, but I won't duplicate my presentation. But before you on the screen now is the proposed severance application. So the existing house and garage would be demolished, and 2 semi-detached dwellings would be built with the demising wall down the middle of the semi-detached units being aligned with the property line. Again, here's just the rendering of what the units would look like. So a mix of brick and stone and, very contemporary building materials. This was the example I spoke of earlier, and this is located at 1171 Swan Street. And these are 2 semi-detached homes that were, again, on a larger lot. These ones are quite deep, but that, again, they were built by Willow Homes, the same builder for the subject application tonight. So these are just shown as representative of past projects that Willow Homes has completed in the community. And really, that concludes my presentation. Certainly look forward to hearing any comments that there might be from members of the committee. And as I said, I'll be available for the zone change portion of the meeting, but I won't duplicate my presentation. But if there's any questions for either, I would be happy to answer them now.
Thank you. If you take your share screen off, please. Thank you.
Yep.
Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Rollerman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for Brandon. Perhaps you could just sort of clarify for me the relationship of the setback of this property with regards to 1150 Swan Street, the adjacent property. Will this be forward more towards the street than 1150, or will it be back further from the street than 1150?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I think it would more than likely be further back from the street than 1150. Again, to allow for longer driveways. There's ample depth of the property, but that's certainly something that we could review with staff at the time of building permit application. We're not looking to amend any of the zoning minimums to bring the buildings any closer to the street.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Rollerman?
I have a second question, if that's okay, Madam Mayor.
Yes, of course.
I was wondering if the staff could look into the feasibility of providing a future trail connection along the Enbridge pipeline easement into future development behind Burnside, behind that on Burnside Drive. I know we missed the opportunity in the past to get a trail connection along that easement going into, what is today Hilltop. So I'm hoping that we can avoid that mistake and perhaps set up some kind of agreement with the developer to allow us to put some sort of trail along the edge of lot 2B.
CEO McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through to Councillor Rowland. I have not yet had a chance to speak to Mr. Flewelling about a potential conveyance that notionally could be a condition of provisional approval of the consents. And if such a conveyance were to be pursued and accepted, that would be in lieu of then a payment of cash in lieu of a parkland. We do have in our conceptual trail master concept for the south west quadrant of urban air, a trail connection going through to the Ballantyne and the Elliott lands, which are situated to the west. And we have two trail links. One is a north-south orientation, generally coming from the proximity of the Brant-Waterloo Road northerly toward the Nith Valley system, which frames the north end of both the Elliott and Ballantyne property. And then we have an east-west corridor that's meant to connect Swan Street and the neighborhoods to the north and or further to the east with the submerging neighborhood on the Ballantyne and Elliott lands. Right now, we've notionally shown to be at the terminus of Burnside Crescent, or Burnside Court, sorry, and then continuing westerly. But certainly the opportunity does exist to entertain that discussion of that trail being on the corridor itself. Those lands today are essentially just set aside for the pipeline corridors themselves. There's multiple pipes maintained by Enbridge in that current easement, and no buildings or structures can go on that corridor. There would be certain limitations if we were to pursue a trail at that location, specifically planting materials. So if you think of trees and the like, obviously we have to be concerned about root growth and how it may affect the buried pipes. Grading and transitional grading for the trail, because there's certain coverages that Enbridge will require. We have reached out to Enbridge specific to this piece to see what, if any, unique circumstances may exist. But we had success in terms of getting a trail approval on a pipeline corridor maintained by Enbridge off of the Challenger neighborhood to the east. And I'm sort of hoping that similar restrictions would apply. And as such, a trail could conceivably be adopted or be accepted at that location. And overall, that may allow for better land efficiency because, as I said, effectively, these lands are sterilized because of the existing pipe corridor. And so a trail might allow for a better utilization at the surface and protect other lands for other purposes in the fullness of time.
Any other questions, councillors? I have one, Brandon, if I may. You talked about 1171 Swan Street. Would they be similar width and size?
Yes, I think they are similar. I forget exactly the size of those units, but I think they are similar. These ones might be slightly larger, but I believe they are quite similar.
Okay, because I find them quite attractive. And in your report that we got, a copy of your full report, you were saying that the regulation states that the lot frontage is 18 meters and you're requesting 8.5, but that's for a half, correct? So the whole thing would be 17. The unit
Correct.
would be 17 meters. So
Correct.
that would be the substantive. Okay, any other, if no other questions, can I have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that report PD 14-2021 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to the Committee of Adjustment on the disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, your vote?
Yes, please.
Councillor Roman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Brandon. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
Now we will do the shuffling of people again, please. Please advise when you're ready.
Okay, you're good to go, Mayor Foxton.
Thank you very much.
Vote.
Good evening, and this is report number PD 15-2021, minor variance application for 1185 Clyde Road, file number A-05/21. In accordance with the Planning Act, notice was given. The Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended, and/or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. Sarah Haig, now our planner and GIS technician, will now be presenting this application. Sarah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So minor variance application file number A-0521 for 1185 Clyde Road on behalf of Tim Ewing. So the purpose of the meeting is to solicit comments from the members of the public and agencies to the proposed minor variance application, and a recommendation in terms of next steps and implementation does form part of tonight's public meeting for the committee's consideration. The subject property is located at 1185 Clyde Road on the east of Shellard Road and east of the Shellard Road Clyde Road intersection. A single detached dwelling and attached garage and shed exist on the property. The square-shaped lot is 10 acres in size, with a corresponding lot frontage and lot depth of 211 meters. The property is serviced by a private well and septic system and is outlined in red on the map. The subject property is zoned Z1 Agriculture in General Zoning Bylaw 689-83. A dwelling unit, coach house, and accessory uses are permitted land uses within activities within the Zone 1's Z1 zone. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of the General Zoning Bylaw to construct a coach house within the front yard of the property, which also exceeds the maximum size of a coach house. The proposed coach house is 7.32 meters by 11.89 meters, which is approximately 24 by 39 feet in size and 4 meters in height, or 13.12 feet. So I've put a more detailed lot plan of the property here. So it is a very large property, but as you can see, the eastern portion is covered by GRCA wetlands and needs to be avoided. There is a pond on the northern portion of the property. The existing house is kind of here in the middle, with a shed in the rear yard and the existing well here and existing septic bed here. The proposed coach house is outlined here in yellow, with the proposed septic bed for the coach house here, and the proposed well is here. So to permit the minor variance application overview is the requested variance to permit a coach house with a maximum size of up to 87 square meters or 940 square feet, which is approximately 70% of the footprint of the existing principal dwelling unit. Whereas section 6.4D.7I of the bylaw permits the size of a coach house must not be greater than 40% of the footprint of the dwelling unit or 110 square meters, whichever is lesser. So as you can see, the proposed size of the coach house is smaller than the maximum size of a coach house, but is exceeding the percentage of the dwelling unit, as it's only taking into consideration the main floor, the footprint. It doesn't consider the second story or the garage. So the second variance is requested to allow the coach house in the front yard, where the provision permits it only to be in the rear yard of the property. And this is a layout of the proposed coach house here. So this is a view of the property from Clyde Road. It is very private. There are several mature trees on the property, which shield both the proposed house and will partially shield the location of the coach house from view of the street. This is the neighboring property here. The proposed location of the coach house is in this area here, and the principal dwelling is located behind these trees. And this is the pond that is referenced on the map. So this is an aerial shot of the property showing the location of the existing house and generally where the coach house will be with the layout here. So this is showing a relative size of the coach house as well. So in terms of the planning analysis, I wanted to look at if there were any other alternative locations. So the provisions of the bylaw do permit a coach house to only be in the rear yard. While there is a very large rear yard on this property, so anything behind the main dwelling, there are reasons why it cannot be located in any of them. So I've chunked out the property here in 6 different sections. So A, none of this area can be used as it is a wetland. B is within 30 meters of the wetland, which also needs to be avoided and is also heavily forested. So technically he could have put it close to here, but it would have required the removal of several mature trees, which the applicant wanted to avoid. Number C, this area here is not accessible because of the terrain. So there's a low-lying area in around here, which all actually required the applicant to construct a footbridge to access even this shed. So it would not really have been accessible via a driveway to get back here, nor would you have been able to build a driveway due to the location of the shed and the mature trees. This section here labeled as D has the same terrain issues. So there's a low-lying area here that would be very hard to get over. You'd need culverts and that sort of thing. You would need to extend the driveway significantly, and it would have to go over the septic bed, which you can't do. So location E can't be used as it is the existing location of the septic bed for the primary house. And F is, again, it experiences a grade change. There is a low-lying area with a bridge that's constructed. There's a shed and mature trees, so it would not accommodate a coach house. So in terms of the planning analysis, we again need to evaluate it against the 4 tests of a minor variance. Number 1 is if the proposed variances conform to the general intent of the zoning bylaw. The intent of the zoning bylaw is to regulate land uses and controls with respect to the placement of buildings on land. Subject land zoned Z1 agriculture in the zoning bylaw, which allow a dwelling unit, accessory uses, and a coach house. Does the proposed variances conform to the general intent of the official plan? Residential uses are permitted activities within the agricultural, rural area, and protected countryside designations, which this subject property has. Number 3, are the variances minor in nature? The intent of restricting the size of a coach house and only allowing it to be located in the rear yard of the property is so that it remains subordinate to the primary dwelling. The subject property is unique in terms of its terrain and the associated environmental features. So despite its large size, it's not possible to locate the coach house in the rear of the property. The proposed coach house is 936 square feet, which is approximately 250 square feet less than the maximum size allowed in the bylaw. But the principal dwelling is, the total size of the principal dwelling is over 2,700 square feet, 40% of which is 1,100 square feet, which is well above the proposed 934. But as the provision states that the coach house must not be greater than 40% of the footprint of the dwelling unit, which does not include the attached garage or second story, the footprint of the dwelling unit is calculated as 1,348 square feet, 40% of which is only 539 square feet, which is really not sufficient enough to allow for a dwelling unit or a coach house. So the proposed size of 936 square feet is an appropriate size for a coach house and is appropriate for the size of the property and will still not overpower the principal structure, which is of a considerable size. And the last test is if the variances are in keeping with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The proposed coach house is set back a considerable distance from Clyde Road and will be mostly shielded from view from the street line and from the adjacent property with mature trees. As per the Planning Act, we did circulate the application as required. We received 1 letter of concern from a neighboring property. The concern regarded flooding in the area. There are several private ponds in this area, and he has noticed that they do flood from time to time, and just wanted to make sure that the proposed coach house would not be affected by the flooding, and was concerned about water control problems in the future, which we will handle through the building permit process. In terms of agency consultation, no objections were received from K-Smart Engineering, Energy Plus, the Waterloo Catholic District School Board, or the Region of Waterloo. The Public Works Department commented that Clyde Road is under the jurisdiction of the Region of Waterloo, and that the applicant is advised that a permit may be required from the Region of Waterloo for any modifications to the existing entrance, which I do not believe are proposed at this time. And the applicant is to be advised that a new entrance will require a permit from the Region of Waterloo. The building department has no concerns from a building code perspective, but noted that permits will be required for the septic system and the construction of the coach house. The Grand River Conservation Authority has no objections. A permit for the construction of the coach house and installation of the septic system will require a permit from the GRCA under Ontario Regulation 150-06. The entire area is regulated by the GRCA due to the Moffat Creek Swamp provincially significant wetland, a tributary of Moffat Creek, and portions of its associated floodplain. No new developments or site alterations would be supported within the floodplain, and they are satisfied that the proposed coach house will not be located in the floodplain or within 30 meters of it. The application type is considered a minor variance, so he noted that the applicant will be charged the review fee of $280 from the GRCA. The staff recommendation based on the planning analysis is that minor variance A-05/21 for 1185 Clyde Road be approved as follows. Relief from section 6.40.7I of General Zoning Bylaw 689-83 to permit a coach house which exceeds the maximum floor area of 40% of the footprint of the principal dwelling unit, or 110 meters squared, whichever is lesser, to a maximum of 70% of the footprint of the dwelling unit, 88 square meters or 940 square feet, and relief from section 6.40.9I of General Zoning Bylaw 689-83 to permit the coach house in the front yard, whereas the zoning bylaw requires that the coach house be located in the rear yard, subject to the following conditions. The proposed coach house shall be set back from Clyde Road by a minimum distance of 70 meters. The proposed coach house shall be set back from the west property line by a minimum distance of 5 meters and a minimum distance of 180 meters to the east property line. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Tim, would you like to say anything?
I don't believe I have too much to say. Sarah covered it off very well. If there's any questions from anybody, I would gladly answer them. But just the one comment about the possibly of the notice that was sent from one of my neighbors, and then the concern of the flooding. I appreciate that flooding. We've been here for 2 years. I have seen that flooding. There has been tile beds built on from the previous owner, but I do believe that being 90 meters is the target of where the build would start is elevated enough that it does not impact the flooding does not impact the proposed dwelling. That's kind of all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Gillespie.
Yes. We all know that there's a lot of water in that area, and I'm very concerned about that because when I was by there today, it seemed to be a very low area right where that coach house is going to be. And who is responsible if it does flood and then goes into the neighboring property? That was my concern.
CAO McNeely would like to respond. Go ahead, CAO McNeely.
Sarah, could you pull up the aerial photo showing the adjacent properties?
Sure. Let me just grab that for you. Just gonna share my screen again.
Great,
See you
thank you
on-
very much. Okay, so as we can see, the property in question is the most easterly of the three lots. And the Ewing property, which is the subject to tonight's application, has the wetland feature along their east a portion of their property. You can see those three ponds, one on the Ewing property and then on the two adjacent properties to the west as we move toward Shellard. We have a series of overland flow as well as seasonal high groundwater that influences all of these properties. So we're quite familiar with the issue of water resources in this area. So we know that sometimes these ponds will top over. They'll start generally at the most westerly, flow toward the center pond, and when it tips, it moves easterly toward Mr. Ewing's property and that pond. And then when his pond tips, it goes into the wetland feature to the east. So if we go to the building site where the Ewing residence is situated today, and where the proposed tile bed as well as coach house are proposed, under the building code and when the building permit application is pursued, there will be a requirement for a plot plan which would cite the building and the septic system within the boundaries of the property, a minimum of 5 meters offset from the west property line, and there will be a requirement for a grading and terrain plan. And so that would show the building footprint, its finished floor elevation, as well as the crowning of the land away from the building envelope, and the series of swales that will be required to convey the overland flow, as well as a demonstration of the ability to move the water that will seasonally flow from those existing ponds easterly toward the wetland area. We do sign off on those engineering grading plans as part of the building permit process. We also require at the end of construction that it be certified that the grades have been constructed in accordance with the approved grading plan that was issued at the outset when the building permit was first issued. So all of these pieces fit together, and there's the checks and balance at the back end to ensure that the building, the grading, and the overland drainage pattern has been properly accounted for so that we don't experience issues in the fullness of time.
Can you unshare, please, Sarah? Thank you. Councilors, any other questions? Councilor Gillespie.
Yeah, one more question. Did I read somewhere where you're going to put trees along the western fence line between the proposed coach house and the adjacent resident?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are existing mature trees along that entire fence line. So if I bring up, I'll just bring up that screenshot one more time.
Yes, I saw them. Go ahead.
Share. Okay, so as you can see here, this entire area is very heavily treed. They're very, very tall. The coach house is proposed about here. So the entire location of the coach house is shielded already from the neighboring property.
Okay,
Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please? You do not have to read it in its entirety because Sarah, when she finished her presentation, went through all those points. So go ahead, please.
Certainly. Moved by Councillor Oster and seconded by Councillor Rollman that PD report number 15-2021 be received, and that's as presented in the staff report. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you very much, and have a good evening, Mr. Early.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening as well. Bye-bye. Cheers.
And we will wait while we move everybody in and out.
Okay, everybody is here, Mayor Foxton.
Thank you. Good evening. 5.5, report number PD-16-2021, minor variance application for 60 Water Street, file number A-03/21. In accordance with the Planning Act, notice was given. The Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended, and or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of a future meeting. I'd like to now introduce Sarah Haig, who is the Planner GIS Technician, who will be presenting this application. Sarah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a minor variance application A-0320 for 60 Water Street. This presentation is giving an overview and public engagement. So the purpose of the statutory public meeting is to provide an overview of the development proposal. It will solicit comments from interested members of the public, government agencies, and other stakeholders that can be reflected in a future report to the committee on the merits of the minor variance application. And we will also identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff as part of the consideration of the subject proposal. The outline of tonight's presentation will be a background of the property location, planning policies and regulations, purpose of the minor variance, and comments received to date. 60 Water Street is located on the north side of Water Street at the intersection of Water Street and Colonial Drive, which backs onto the southeast corner of Victoria Park and is outlined in red. The irregularly shaped lot is 425.53 square meters in size, with a lot frontage of 12.04 meters, which narrows to 6.8 meters at the rear and has a lot depth of 43 meters. The subject lands are located in a mature residential neighborhood. The neighborhood is dominated by single detached dwellings, with the majority in the immediate area being represented by bungalows. The subject lands represent a legal lot of record. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of the general zoning bylaw to construct a single detached dwelling on the undersized lot. The minor variance application is requesting relief from section 8.3.3b of the zoning bylaw to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 2.4 meters for a 2-story dwelling to 1.2 meters on both sides. This is an outline of the proposed development, and this is where the closest portion of the building to the setback is 1.2 meters. The subject property is zoned as Z4, urban residential. In general zoning bylaw 689-83, a dwelling unit and accessory uses are permitted land use activities within the Z4 zone. If approved, the owner seeks to construct a new 2-story single detached house. So this is the site. The red line indicates the approximate location of the property lines, and the yellow boundary is approximately the building envelope proposed by the applicant. I've superimposed, again, this is not 100% accurate, but just to give an idea, this is the front elevation of the proposed development, which will fit approximately like this on the lot. This is the all elevations of the proposed development. It contains an attached single car garage. And as you can tell, based on the size of the property and shape, it is narrower and deeper than the surrounding houses. In terms of public correspondence, we have received 11 letters from members of the public objecting to this application. One of the letters contained a petition of 47 names objecting to the application. The key concerns outlined in those objections were that the proposed two-story dwelling with the reduced side yard setbacks is out of character with the neighborhood, which is primarily consisting of bungalows on wider lots. The lot was intended for the purpose of pedestrian connectivity, linking Water Street and Colonial Drive with Victoria Park. The well situated at the rear of the property, which was originally designed to supply potable water to the neighborhood, may still exist. The application may require additional variances not yet requested, and the application is not minor or desirable for the neighborhood. In terms of agency correspondence, Energy Plus did not object to the proposal. They have a few comments that the applicant would need to consider, including requiring additional information regarding the hydro vault that's been identified on the property. They will need to enter into a service agreement with Energy Plus, and they're responsible for 100% of the cost. Need to ensure they have ESA clearances and are reminded to call Ontario 1 before digging. The Public Works Department requests additional information from the Region of Waterloo to confirm that there is sufficient capacity in the municipal water main and the municipal sanitary sewer to allow for municipal servicing of the property, and to confirm if there are any abandoned water or sanitary utilities located on the property. A permit for the construction of the driveway on the right-of-way will be required at the cost of the applicant, and the existing tree or trees on the frontage of the property may need to be removed at the cost of the applicant, should it be determined that it prohibits sufficient visibility for an entrance. The boulevard grading will require adjustment to facilitate the development of the property, and a grading plan will be required to ensure appropriate drainage of the municipal boulevard. Excuse me. The Region of Waterloo has no objections, but wanted to advise the applicant that development of the subject lands is subject to the development charges bylaw. The building department stated that a survey, lot grading plan, and construction details in compliance with the Ontario Building Code for proximity to building property lines will be required at the time of permit, and servicing verification from the Region of Waterloo is required prior to construction. The Waterloo Catholic District School Board just noted that any educational development charges will be collected prior to the issuance of a building permit. So for future consideration, as a recommendation is not brought forward at tonight's meeting, so staff in consideration of a future report on the merits of the planning application will be considering matters including all comments and correspondence received during the consultation process, if there is a right-of-way, easement, covenant, or similar instrument applied against the title of the property associated with either a utility corridor and or passageway for pedestrian connection through Victoria Park, the status of the well purported to be present at the rear of the lot and whether or not it has been properly closed out and decommissioned, site servicing, access, grading, overland drainage, and how the development of the lot would interface with abutting properties on Water Street and Colonial Drive intersection. If the subject proposal, in the opinion of staff, meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, specifically if it's desirable for the property and compatible with adjacent residential uses, and compliance with all provisions of the zoning bylaw. So in terms of that, one of the comments received was from a planning consultant, which raised concerns that the proposal did not meet the provisions of the zoning bylaw and required 3 additional minor variances. Staff have reviewed that comment and agree with one of the minor variances, so they will require a minor variance to vary the established building line. They are meeting the front yard setback established by the bylaw, which is 7.5 meters, but there's an additional provision of the established building setback stating that if the existing area has houses close together surrounding a lot, that you have to kind of maintain the existing building line. So as the existing houses in that area are approximately 10 meters from the street line, this property would need to adhere to that building line. So an additional variance would be required, which we would circulate again to the public and bring forward at the recommendation in the next meeting. The comment suggested that it did not meet the minimum floor area in section 8.3 point something, but staff disagrees. We have reviewed the interpretation of the bylaw and it does in fact meet that. And the third was about encroachments. It's not requiring of a variance, it's just something the applicant needs to be and is aware of in terms of how they designed the structure. So in terms of a recommendation, tonight, the recommendation of staff to council is that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through this consultation process be returned to staff for a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, you're muted.
Would the applicant like to say anything? Okay, not seeing anything. The first speaker I have is.
I think he may want to.
Yeah, if we could speak, then
Go
we're
ahead.
fine. Thank you. My name's Rich Fady. This is Mike Fady. We're cousins on doing this lot. I guess if there's questions, we'll take those. So we just wanted to bring that forward, I guess. So when that comes about, we can answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
So next up, we have from the member of the public, Andrea Fetty. Did you want to speak, Andrea? Are you here? Andrea's number 5.5. Andrea, did you want to speak? She says no, thank you in the chat. So next we have Scott Peterson, Peterson Planning Consultant, Inc. And he has said he would like to speak. Scott, go ahead. Patterson, I apologize.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Scott Patterson, and I'm the principal of Patterson Planning Consultants. And I'm the author of the letter that Ms. Haig spoke to identifying the additional zoning deficiencies in the bylaw. I represent Lynn Ouellette, who lives at 58 Water Street, and she would be directly impacted by this proposal if it were supported and allowed to proceed. The correspondence I provided drew attention to the other issues in the zoning bylaw that I believe currently exist with the proposal. As noted by Ms. Haig, particularly the proposed building not following the established setback of the buildings on either side of this lot. To comply, the building would need to be pushed further back into the site, which will result in additional changes or relief from the bylaw will be required. I wasn't actually expecting Ms. Haig to speak to that tonight, so I don't have comments particularly on that. And I will naturally submit a further letter if that variance is sought, as if that is the requirement or would be sought. The new 3 meters ahead of the existing buildings. I believe that would lead to
Scott,
further.
you're starting to break up a bit. If you turn your video off, your sound may stay better.
So yes, if an additional variance is sought for the front yard setback, I will be submitting additional comments on that, just again to speak to compatibility and the desirability of that variance. For the variance being sought, I had provided comments on the 10 minor variance and came to the conclusion that the proposal is not minor or desirable for the development of these lands. I believe my letter outlined the case why this proposal is not appropriate at this location and why it should not be supported. In my opinion, the site is being overbuilt. Development is out of character. Variance should not be granted to allow this to occur. Just because the proponent believes that a 22-foot wide building can be built on the lot, or that they have found an municipality, does not mean that it is appropriate or should be. For the sake of time, I will not get into any additional details and will let my written submission speak to my concerns. I yield to the neighbors who are rightfully concerned with this proposal. But if committee members or anyone has any or requires clarity on what I have submitted, I would be happy to respond. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Scott. Next to speak is Margaret Plagans, but I don't see her.
Oh, she's here.
Right here.
Oh, there you are, Margaret, up there. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Hi.
Margaret.
A lot of the issues that were discussed have already been addressed. My main concern is that I'm first of all opposed to the approval of that variance. It's a very narrow, long strip of land, and it's always been used as a walkway for the residents of the area to access Victoria Park. And the proposal to put a two-story, very narrow, tall two-story building on that property is out of character with the neighborhood. All of the homes in that direct area are single-family, single-story bungalows and ranch-style homes. So it would be very much out of character for that home to be on that property.
Thank you, Margaret. Lynn, would you like to speak? I saw you up here. Where are you?
Hi,
Yeah.
can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes.
Not sure about my video, but good evening. And thank you for your time. I have a few more things that I want to take note on top of the nice letter I wrote in. It's the orientation of this building that's going to be on the lot. It's not perpendicular to the street line. It's in the lot, like the angle of the lot in itself. So that it doesn't represent the rest of the houses in the area. I guess the other thing is my survey states that it's a right of way, and we've always been knowing that nobody could ever build on that lot. And it states on my survey that it is, and it's based on the water main, the well that's there. And the survey that was presented, it shows that it's just a concrete pad. And I'm not sure why the well was omitted in there. And looking at the dimensions of the survey, there's some discrepancies there in accordance to what I had submitted in my survey. And I would think my survey would prevail, being that this is what's in my contract. It's what we got when we bought the house in 1980. The square footage of the lot is different as well. Fetty's survey read that it was 4,580.3 square feet, and mine shows that it's 4,560 square feet. But it's not a big difference, but there's some differences there. So the dimensions of the survey is different than what I have. So
Thank you, Lynn. Sarah, do you have Lynn's survey?
I can pull it up for you.
No, you don't need to pull it up. I just want to make sure you have it for comparison purposes and to use information. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lynn. Next, we have Dorothy
thank
Costa.
you.
Dorothy?
Hello.
Good evening, Dorothy. You're up.
Good evening, Sue and councillors. I'm Dorothy Coster. I live on 56 Water Street, and both my husband and I strongly object to this minor variance application. We've lived here more than 37 years, and this parcel of land has always been a walkway or a right-of-way to the park. Back in 1965, all the lot sizes were about the same on both sides of the walkway. The variance part, the lot. Therefore, when they did all these on each side, they were about the same. And that little spot in the middle was left for the wellway. And that wellway was considered a walkway back then, and it's still there today. It was never, ever intended to be a building lot, and it would be too small for a house of any kind. And it's just not suitable for a two-story or anything. This piece of property won't fit in with all the other properties. I would like to see it stay as a walkway, not only for the neighborhood, but for the whole community, as many people use it to go in to and from the park. Not for one person to benefit from it. I would like it to stay a green space. And one other thing is the neighbors back here have tried to reach out to Fetty to solve this problem, and we were not successful. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Alex Moss.
Yeah, I'm done.
Good evening, Ms. Mayor
Good evening.
and guests. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I live at 62 Water Street and I appreciate the opportunity. I know communities grow and change, and I understand why that is. Having said that, the variance that's being requested would change the setback next to my own home. And quite frankly, I object to it, especially with a 2-story building, because it will cast shadows likely all over my yard. And I know that's a selfish reason, of course, but it is one nonetheless. In a bigger sense, I disagree with changing the bylaw for one individual or one owner strictly because they wish to use the land in a way that suits themselves only. It doesn't suit the community to have the bylaw changed for the homeowners or the owners of this land. It suits only the proposal and the people who wish to build on it. That is my greater objection to this. While I do understand that that there's a reason for this building, I'm sure the Feddies have a good reason for it, and I have no doubt of that. It does not suit this community so far as I can tell. And with that, I'll pass on my time.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'd had Vic and Donna Generu. They said they did not wish to speak, but I'm going to give them another opportunity should they wish to. Vic or Donna, did you want to say any comments? I don't hear anything from them. The other one was Jody Habel. Next is Dave Habel.
Speak. Sue, we did want to speak. I'm sorry it took me a minute to unmute and put the camera on. Yes, Vic and I opposed this building, and thank you for the opportunity to share tonight, for your time. We've built our house 47 years ago, and we have lived in a neighborhood without any conflict or problems, and we're not opposed to new buildings going up or renovations of homes. But we do feel this is not a minor variance. We feel it is more a major variance. We too, on March the 9th, reached out to Fetty to see if we could, come to some kind of an agreement in our neighborhood to maybe stop some of the conflict that was going on. And his comments to us was it was a business deal and we wouldn't be able to pay him what he wanted for this property. And if he didn't build, then someone else would, even those people that are opposed to it. And he said he might not be able to build this house, but he would build something, and really had no intention of listening to what we as neighbors would like. So as homeowners on Water Street for 47 years, we would like to see council appropriate this land and avoid further conflict. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I'm again, Jody Habel. I don't even see her on here. Is she on here, Ashley? Oh, I've got Dave Habel down there. Dave, would you like to speak? I don't hear anything from him. And Amanda Fernie Navziger. Amanda, would you like to make any comment? Seeing none. Okay, next we will go to councilors. Councilors, comments. Councilor Rollman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm disappointed with how this has transpired. I know the neighborhood's very upset. Looking at the comments from Mr. Patterson, the comments from our staff, the comments from the neighbors, I just don't see how we can allow this to go forward as proposed. The setback needs to be maintained with the rest of the houses on that side of the street. The height of the house should be the same as the adjacent bungalows to keep it in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. I'm surprised that house would fit on there. I'm hoping that we can find some way to mitigate this and not end up with a neighborhood that is extremely upset and disappointed. So I'm hoping there's some way that we can mediate this as council and get this resolved.
Any other questions, Councilor Osner?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are obvious concerns, large concerns with this property being the odd shape that it is. And I'm glad that Sarah addressed the, because when I was watching the presentation, the first thing I thought was, oh, that's awful close to the road, which is a big issue when it comes to existing neighborhoods. We've had other applications that have come through on Northumberland Street, et cetera, where we have insisted on houses being set back similar to the developments. There are a couple of issues that I'm hoping through the investigation can be determined. One is if this piece of property was, as people say, a public walkway, as the residents say, is a public walkway. Is there any documentation? Is there any legal proof that it was a walkway? Because it keeps being called a walkway, yet it's a piece of private property. It was sold to the Fades as a piece of property, private property. So it's difficult. I wasn't around back then, and I don't know what was built into the plan of the subdivision. However, it appears to be a piece of private property that was sold. People may have treated it like a walkway. However, it is a piece of private property. So the issue with the planning development in itself, yeah, it has big issues. So, you know, that's going to be a challenge with that's for sure. However, I'd like to know, like I said, how this became a public, a private piece of property, sorry, and B, if this was existing as right away or something like that, like, did the previous owner, were the neighbors not offered this piece of property? Like, was this piece of property never offered for sale to the neighboring properties before it became before it was sold as a development? Because it's a tough piece of property to develop. However, I'm not understanding if this was a community right away, why either the township doesn't own it or the neighboring property owners own it. So I'd like to see that kind of trail of how it became a lot. How did it become a lot for somebody to purchase with the assumptions that they may be able to build on it? So those are some things we'd like to see.
Thank you. CEO McNeely, I have a question for you. Do we not have a policy that says when a house is being built that it must be compatible with the neighborhood?
So, Madam Mayor, there is an official plan policy that speaks to character when development occurs. And as Ms. Haig in her presentation identified, the Committee of Adjustment in their decision-making powers are to evaluate 4 tests. One of the tests talks about the compatibility of development in the context of the proposed relief from the zone standards. So that analysis is one of the items that was identified as a task outstanding, which will be then reflected in that future report back to the Committee of Adjustment once we received all government and agency comments. Madam Mayor, if I could I just speak very briefly to Councillor Ostner's comments about historic transfers, and I'll use the word privileges over the land.
Yes.
We do know it's an existing lot of record, and we do know that it's privately owned, and we do know that it's been legally conveyed in the recent past through land transactions. We have internally records going back to 1973 that we've been able to access via Terranet, which is the provincial entity that manages property titles and restrictions on titles of property. We have asked legal counsel to go back prior to 1973 to when the lots were actually created back in the day when the subdivision was initially approved in and around 1964 or 1965, and trace the history to the present period. That may clarify for Councillor Ostner chronology of events and what, if any, entitlements were conveyed or present back in the day, or whether they were just sort of unofficial in that there were permissions provided, but never enshrined in terms of easements or rights of ways. So we have to truth that out. And that would form part of that future report back to council. Oh, sorry, back to the Committee of Adjustment.
Councillor Ostner.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the other thing is, I've read the report, I've read the comments, petition, etc., all the above. Everybody keeps referring to this as a right of way to the park. So if that many people are saying that this was always meant to be a right of way to the park, like, it's not just one person saying, like, is this an urban legend, or was this part of the development when it was developed? And it was just never recorded. That's the hard part, because if it hadn't been recorded, then that's an issue. That's a problem. We don't have record of it.
May I give an example? An example is that the end of English Street, and there's that pathway that all the kids used to go through to cut through to get to the school, rather than coming all the way down English and going down Willison. It is actually an emergency access for the fire department that was put in years ago when I was on council. And should that emergency access ever be taken away, the land goes back to the owner. So people have asked us several times, and even this council, why don't we take that gate away and make it a walkway for the kids and that? And we have said, because it is private property, but there is an agreement with the owner that while the emergency access is there. So people overuse, they assume that that is a right of way, but there's not. We're trying to see if there's documentation for it. The other thing, Councillor Ostner, is if it was a municipal right of way, we would first off go to each neighbor and offer them half of it, but it's not, and therefore we can't do that. But are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please? Ms. Sage?
Certainly. Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that PD report number 16-2021 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ostner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And now we'll have the motion to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. You may stay and listen to the rest of the meeting if you wish, or you may go and watch something more thrilling.
Moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that pursuant to the Planning Act, the public meeting of the Committee of Adjustment be adjourned.
I'm sorry, I missed that someone put up here that they wish to speak. Is it too late to let Rich and Mike speak? I don't know who Rich and Mike are.
They're the people that own the property.
Yeah, they would like to speak. I have to ask council if you will allow that. Councillor Rollman, Councillor Ostner, raise your hand if you let them speak, please. Okay, go ahead, Rich and Mike, you may speak.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a lot of questions I wish I could answer. Like I wrote down here. The best to my knowledge is when I moved in here in 2000, just down the street on Colonial. There was 3 owners to the lot up the street. So when I moved in between the Hurdles and the Hammers, I was the 3rd owner of this house. And in the property that is behind us and down the street at 60 Water, there was a 3 ownership to this. So as far as I know, going back, talking with these original owners that had that, it was back in 1975, they owned it. They paid taxes all the way up to December of just 2020 when I purchased it from them, because they were at the point of, they knew they would never build on the lot that was zoned for residential building. So me and Mike, first off, I actually was going to get my parents, build a house for my parents, but then that fell through. So then I brought in Mike with me, and we brought forward to try to find the best suited position on that lot. This is where the variance comes from. Of course, when you do a variance, you're going to ask for a little more here and there, because you have to almost. In our eyes, we were doing this to make it best suit the plot itself. We have, like, going back, there's pictures of beautiful houses that would fit it. I get when people say, oh, there's bungalow and stuff like that, but there, if we keep shrinking the size of this as we're asking for the variance, it's going to be a narrow house. And there is a determination that in this zoning that we could build a skinny tall house that would look maybe really funny. And that's where we brought into this this drawing, saying this is probably the best suited position for a zoned building lot in air. So that's kind of where we got to this. And yes, the concerns and everything with neighbors saying this is a walkway, it's definitely been accessed daily for that, but in our minds, it's basically private property that people have been, the two neighbors as well as I for the last 3 years has been okay with it. We allow people to play on my hill at the side of the house. This is our neighborhood. They talk about how beautiful our neighborhood is. I love it. The people are great, but to see what's going on and the things that have been said are just atrocious around here. And I get that they're concerned, and you guys may look at that as maybe this isn't something to do, but fair is fair when it says it's a building lot. And I know the neighbors have talked about this and thought about building on this before. And you know, me as a contractor and stuff like that, thought it was the best opportunity to take the taxes from them and take it onto me as the owner of this lot. So that's kind of how we got it. I know I could go on and about this, and yeah, I appreciate the chance to talk though on this, and yeah, we'll go on from this then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we'll have the motion to adjourn and go back into council.
Moved by Councillor Rolleman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that pursuant to the Planning Act, the public meeting of Committee of Adjustment be adjourned at 8:37 p.m. and the council meeting be called back to order. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Okay, and next we have, let me just get this up to part here. We have 6.1, report number PD 17/2021, proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 1154 Swan Street. Have we got everybody in now? We're okay, Ashley? May I carry on? Thank you.
Yep.
In accordance with the Planning Act, notice has been given. The clerk will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended and or have registered with the clerk division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. I'd like to introduce Shahid, who is the township planner and will be presenting. Shahid, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm presenting the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application ZC 8/20 regarding 1154 Swan Street. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide an overview of the proposed development, solicit comment from the interested member of public, government agencies, and other stakeholders that can be reflected in a future report to council on the merit of the proposed zoning application, and identify the issues or matters to be assessed by staff as part of the consideration of the subject proposal. The subject property is located within the built-up area community of Air, which is municipally the property's municipally addressed as 1154 Swan Street. The property is approximately 3,433 square meter in size, and with the lot frontage of 50.77 meter on Swan Street. The property is serviced by municipal water and sanitary services. As you can see in the picture, the subject property consists of a single detached dwelling and detached house. And the northern portion of the property contains an easement in favor of Enbridge Gas for the purpose of high pressure gas transmission pipeline. And the property also contains, the balance of the property contains the landscape grass and several mature trees. The staff also reviewed the provincial, regional, and township official plan statutory document. All provincial, regional, and township or statutory plan talk about the same thing. The provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the regional official plan, they all encourage intensification, infill development, and diverse housing in the settlement area. If you see the township official plan also encouraged the provision of new dwelling units in built-up area in the Air urban area through infill conversions, intensification, or redevelopment of compatible with the surrounding uses. Currently, the subject's property is zoned as Zone 2A rural residential. Zone 2A permits residential dwelling unit, which may include single detached dwelling plus accessory use. The current zoning also required a minimum lot area of 0.4 hectare, which is 4,000 square meter, and minimum lot width 30 meter. The applicant proposed 2 semi-detached building, which required to amend the land use classification to permit the proposed development, which is 2 semi-detached building in the form of 4 dwelling units. As I discussed earlier, the subject property is currently zoned as Zone 2A, which require 4,000 square meter size, 30 meter lot width, and also allow a single detached dwelling and accessory use. So the applicant is proposing zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the redevelopment of the subject land to establish total 4 residential lots, which are proposed to be in the form of 2 semi-detached dwellings. So therefore, the applicant is proposing to rezone the property from Zone 2A to Zone 5A urban residential. And as you can see on the zoning bylaw concept plan, the northern portion of the property is like an Enbridge Gas for the Enbridge Gas easement. There'll be zoned as an open space to facilitate the easement plot. The zone Z5A permits semi-detached dwelling with the required minimum lot area 730 square meter and the minimum lot width of 18 meter. However, the proposed zone change to the Zone 5A classification also contemplate the establishment of site-specific regulation to permit a lot with minimum frontage of 8.5 meter and a minimum lot area 556 square meter, and the 0 interior side lot line along with the common wall between the semi-detached units. So the site-specific zoning standard as proposed are necessitated because the parent Zone 5A classification did not contemplate the creation of 2 freehold lots for the semi-detached units. Each of the proposed semi-detached dwelling will be serviced by municipal water and sanitary sewer. It is proposed that each dwelling unit will have driveway access onto Swan Street. So in response to the public consultation, we haven't received any comments, concern from any member of public. The submission package also circulated to agencies and the department. Regional Municipality of Waterloo expressed no concern. Energy Plus, they provided standard comments, which like legal, the applicant need to provide a legal survey, and the applicant will be responsible for 100% cost of the service, the new lot, and relocate the upgrade services. Waterloo Region District School Board, they commented that education development charges shall be collected prior to issuance of building permit. Grand River Conservation Authority expressed no concern. Public Works of the Township of North Dumfries has no objection to the proposed development. And the township consulting engineer commented that at the time of building permit application, proponent to need to provide the site grading plan and service plan prepared by engineer. Soil assessment is required to show suitability of infiltration. No drainage onto adjacent land is allowed. Therefore, swales are to be constructed along the property line to direct surface water towards Swan Street. Staff, in consideration of the future report on the merit of the consent application, zoning application will be considered, matter including all comments, correspondence received through this consultation process, the provincial interest matter, for example, promote efficient development, adequate provision of full range of housing, orderly development, the appropriate location of the growth and development, whether the proposed development conform with the official plan, zoning bylaw amendment, and also dimension and shape of the proposed lots. Staff will also consider the desirability of the property, is the desirability for the property and compatible with the adjacent use and properties. The staff will also consider the pedestrian and vehicular movement and linkages and parking requirement as well. The staff will also consider the landscape setback and buffering of proposed and existing development and traffic generated by surrounding land uses and the proposed development. That's the conclusion of my, sorry. So the staff is recommending that the comments and correspondence received from the member of public and government agencies through consultation process be returned to staff for a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Shahid. And Brandon, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think I have much more to add. Mr. McGall did a good presentation. I'm certainly here available to answer any questions that council might have, but my comments provided at the Committee of Adjustment meeting stand for the zone change as well. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Council, is there any questions? Seeing none, can we have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rolleman, that report PD 17-2021 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osser?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night, Brandon. Now, Ms. Sage, do you have to move people in and out?
Yes, we do have a few people to move in.
Great.
Okay, everybody's in, Mayor Foxton.
Thank you. And good evening. And I'd like to state that that notice was given in accordance to the Planning Act. That the clerk will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended and or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or convening future meetings. I'd like to now introduce Shahid, the Township Planner, who will be presenting this application.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The next presentation is regarding temporary use zoning bylaw amendment application ZC09/20 submitted by Quick Read Toronto Incorporation. The purpose of this proposed temporary use bylaw is to support an immediate need of additional space for the existing Quick Read industrial business operation. The subject property is located on the south side of Whistle Bear Road and east of Dickey Settlement. The property is municipally addressed as 1453-1531 Whistle Bear Road, and the property is approximately 133 hectares in size. As you can see on the map, which is outlined with the yellow line. And you can also see on this map the existing Quick Read property, which is municipally addressed as 1501 Whistle Bear Road, and also the existing property, the subject property as well. The proposed temporary use bylaw will apply to a 3.7 hectare portion of the subject property, 1453/1531 Whistle Bear Road, which is located west, which is located to the immediate west of Quick Read existing property 1501 Whistle Bear Road. As you can see on the map, the existing property 1501, and the proposed the subject property is located west of the Quick Read property. Staff also reviewed the Planning Act, provincial policy statements, and the regional official plan, and the township official plan, and the bylaw as well. If you see the Planning Act that empowered the council to authorize the temporary use of land, which shall not exceed 3 years from the day of the passing of the bylaw. That also empowered the council may by bylaw grant further period of not more than 3 years each during which the temporary use in authorized. So the Planning Act basically authorize council to authorize or grant temporary use bylaw, temporary use land. The provincial policy statements also that encourage or promote diversification of the economic base and employment opportunity through goods and services, including value-added products and the sustainable management or use of resources. So if you see the policy 1.3.1 employment, that also straight provide opportunity for diversified economy, including maintaining a range and choice of suitable site for employment uses, which support a wide range of economic activity and ancillary uses, and take into account the need of existing and future businesses. The subject property identified as a countryside on the regional official plan, and the policy 4.3 state the regional official provide a broad range of accessible employment opportunity throughout Waterloo region and maintain competitive advantage in attracting and retaining people, jobs, and investment. And if you see the township of North Dumfries, that specific talk about the temporary use bylaw. So policy 2.6.16.1 that say that the official plan state that the township that by bylaw may be passed in accordance with the provision of the Planning Act to authorize the temporary use of land, building, or structure for a period of not exceeding 3 years, and to permit such temporary use to be continued thereafter for additional period of time, not exceeding 3 years each, as determined by the Township Council, to permit any other uses which Township Council deem appropriate on a temporary basis. The subject property is currently zoned as Zone 14. The current zoning, Zone 14, do not allow the proposed temporary use and is narrowly restricted to aggregate extraction, and necessarily that's why the applicant is proposing for temporary use bylaw. Let me share the purpose of this temporary use bylaw. Basically, the applicant is proposing through the enactment of the temporary use bylaw to facilitate the storage of goods and material as well as the parking of vehicles, including but not limited to tractor trailers. The proposed temporary use bylaw will apply to approximate 3.7 hectare portion west of the Quikrete existing property. As you can see on the map, the subject property is outlined with the yellow line, which is 133 hectare. The Quikrete properties you can see, and the subject property located west of the existing Quikrete property, that is approximately area 3.7 hectare. So the temporary use bylaw, if approved, would have a term up to maximum of 3 years. The owner or applicant can seek renewal or extension of the temporary use bylaw in accordance with the applicable provision of the Planning Act, as I mentioned earlier. The temporary use bylaw, if approved, would also require a site plan application to demonstrate the access to Quikrete property, location and storage facility, parking, grading, landscape, stormwater management area. As you can see on the map, the access to the proposed temporary use, like proposed development provide from the existing Quikrete property. As you can see, 2 arrows on this map. So that won't be from the main road, but that will be from the existing Quikrete property. In response to the public consultation, there are 3 adjacent property owners. They expressed their concern. The key concern include like a noise and noise and air pollution. For example, the property adjacent property owner, they express their concern during the month of summer, tend to get a white residue land on the lawns, cars, house from the dust, blowover. So there's also other property owners. They express some concerns and raise some questions that what will be stored and parked on the site, what are allowable operating hours, with what material will be existing pond will be filled with, will illumination be required. So basically the first 2 comments, noise and the air pollution, basically the applicant, they mentioned they're concerned about the aggregate operation and that's impacting they're creating the negative impact to the adjacent property owners because of noise and air pollution. The application also circulated to agencies and department. The region of Waterloo expressed no concern. They don't have an objection. GRCA expressed no concern. Energy Plus have no objection to the proposed temporary zoning bylaw amendment. They provide the standard comments. The owner will be responsible for all costs associated with the relocation and upgrade of existing electrical plant and 100% cost. Township consulting engineer commented that the proponent should provide a site drainage plan for the proposed temporary storage use. The proponent shall provide a stormwater management brief for the existing stormwater pond. The consulting engineer also required some additional information, for example, how much grading will be completed in the area of proposed temporary storage, what will be the surface treatment and drainage area for the existing stormwater pond. So the staff, in consideration of the feature report on the merit of the application, will be considering all comments concern received through this consultation process. The provincial interest matter, for example, promoting diversification of economic base, employment opportunities, protecting the environment and public health and safety. So staff will be also considering whether the proposed development plan conform with the township official plan, the subject proposal desirability for the property, compatible with the adjacent uses and maintain the character of the area, what site-specific provisions are required to address the future intended use of the subject land, and what are the impact of the traffic from the proposed development. The staff will also consider the appropriate mechanism to address site requirements such as drainage, grading, site servicing, stormwater management, and compatibility with the surrounding area of the proposed development. So the staff is recommending to council that all comments and correspondence received from the member of public and government agencies through consultation process be returned to staff for a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Thanks, Madam Mayor. That's a conclusion of my report.
Thank you, Shahid. And now I believe Megan Jarity wishes to speak. Good evening, Megan.
Good evening. Thank you. I am just going to share my screen if that's okay.
Mhm.
Can you see this?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. So good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Megan Garrity. I'm a senior planner with GSP Group in Kitchener. I'm here this evening to speak to this temporary use application on behalf of Gatekey Aggregate Inc. and Quikrete Toronto Inc. Here with me this evening is David Salidas, the Regional Operations Manager for Quikrete. I'll make a short presentation to provide some additional context, but David will also be available for questions afterwards. Mr. Mughal already went through a lot of this information, so I'll just point out that the site is in red and Quikrete's operation is just next door to that site highlighted in black, and that the site is 3.7 hectares in size. To give a bit more background on Quikrete, specifically, they're the largest manufacturer of packaged concrete and cement products in North America. They offer concrete, mortar, cement mixes, and a range of other related products. Their site is not within any licensed pit area, so there's no extraction within their site. Also, Quikrete does not do any crushing of materials. The aggregate that they use for products is washed, screened, and crushed before it is brought to their site. The existing property that Quikrete has just to the right of the property that's highlighted in red is 4.8 hectares. In 2016, we brought forward a site plan to the township for approval of a custom building product site and a warehouse. The custom building products plant has been constructed since then. Last year, Quikrete also made significant investments in a rotary drum dryer cooler, which has increased their drying capacity. So the need for this additional space is really coming from an increase in the volume of their business, but also as a result of changes to the retail market. Many retail operations now require just-in-time delivery, meaning the products need to stay on Quikrete's site longer until they're ordered instead of being stored at the retail operator's location. So to meet this immediate need, they've been storing some materials off-site. However, this is not efficient and results in more loading and unloading of materials and more truck trips moving materials as a result. So the proposed temporary use would provide additional space for storage just adjacent to their existing site to help make the process more efficient and also reduce some of the truck trips. So as Mr. Mughal had already mentioned, the official plan designation for the site is rural. It's also located within the protected countryside. There are existing policies that limit the growth of industrial uses in the rural area to within the current boundaries of existing industrial sites. So that is why currently we've requested temporary use at this time. From a zoning perspective, the site is zoned 14 mineral aggregates for aggregate extraction, and then the Quikrete site is zoned industrial and it has site-specific permissions. The proposed temporary use would allow for the storage of goods and materials, as well as the parking of vehicles from their existing operations on a temporary basis. The planning report was submitted as part of the application process, providing some justification for the proposed temporary use. No other technical reports were required as part of that submission process based on the pre-consultation requirements. However, given some of the comments received regarding noise and dust, we wanted to mention that Quikrete had completed an acoustical assessment report in July of last year, which was approved by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change in December. Also, they completed an emission summary and dispersion modeling report as part of their environmental compliance approval amendment update, and that also meets the MOE requirements. So as was shown earlier, this is just a very basic site plan. Originally, a pond was envisioned for the site as part of the rehabilitation of the previous extraction from the Blair pit. And it's now being reconfigured from its original size and location as shown here to accommodate the proposed use, and the majority of that has already been completed as far as I know. The site would be accessed through the existing Quikrete site, and the township, we were told that we would be required to go through the site plan approval process to demonstrate how the site will actually function. And so in conclusion, Quikrete has expanded and intensified their existing business as much as they can within the limits of their property. The proposed temporary use is contiguous with the existing operations, so it creates some efficiencies for them as opposed to storing some of the materials offsite. And growth in the volume of business and having products ready for shipment necessitates this expansion. We believe that temporary use of the site for storage is an appropriate interim step to allow Quikrete to manage their operations more efficiently in the short term, while seeking opportunities to amend policies in the regional official plan and township official plan to ultimately accommodate the long-term plan, which would be to permanently expand Quikrete's operation. So thank you very much for your attention, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Could you take your screen sharing off, please?
Yeah.
Thank you, Megan. Are there any questions of Megan at this time? Councillor Rollerman, Pat, you're not up yet, so maybe when your turn comes. Councillor Rollerman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question of clarification. Megan, you talked about the temporary use is zoned Z14, whereas the Quikrete site is zoned Z11. Will the temporary use area also then become taxed at the Z11 classification, or will it still remain Z14?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a good question. I believe it would remain as is, and the temporary use would kind of be in addition to its existing use, and the temporary use would spell out the storage of materials and trucks.
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, as Megan has just identified, the zone classification being the Z14 would remain. The temporary use would allow those activities that have been outlined. MPAC has circulated all zoning applications, and the property would be temporarily assessed based on the enhanced uses, which is the storage of goods and materials, truck parking, and the like. So for the duration of the temporary use period, it would be assessed based on the industrial activities as permitted in the temporary use bylaw.
Thank you. No other questions. David, would you like to say anything?
Mayor Fox.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, David. Councillor McCreary has now put her hand up.
Sure.
Question.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We have been calling this, it is called a temporary change because it's only for 3 years. So I guess under the Planning Act, it can be renewed again after 3 years. So in a sense, what we are looking for here is a permanent change. Is that what I understand? Because
can I stop this conversation, let the speaker speak, let Pat speak, and then the council will come in and discuss the whole thing, because I think we're getting off track here. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to refer directly to Megan's report.
I am speaking directly to Megan's report.
Okay, go ahead.
We're asking questions, aren't we?
Not really at this point. It's the speakers first, but CEO McNeely wants to come in. CEO McNeely?
Madam Mayor, in follow up to Councillor McCreary's question, yes, this is a temporary use. It's to allow Quikrete to continue to operate based on their increased volumes and demands in the marketplace for their product. The current restrictions of the regional official plan and the township official plan had unfortunate consequences as it related to existing businesses that operate in the rural countryside. And the words of the policy did not allow them to expand or intensify. The region, as part of their update to the official plan that is underway, is revisiting that policy because the original intent was to prohibit new development outside of settlement areas. It was not meant to restrict existing businesses and the ability for those existing businesses to adapt and respond to changing circumstances in their business model. The bridge, until those new official plan policies are actually enshrined, is the temporary use bylaw. And it allowed Quikrete to undertake their increased business activity through the temporary use bylaw, with the premise that in the future, the official plan policies will catch up. And then there could be a formal proposal from Quikrete to pursue permanent zone classification on the lands that are presently the area or the footprint associated with the temporary use bylaw. If that eventuality were to come to pass, it would be its own amendment process, and there would be notice and a public meeting similar to what we're doing this evening.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. I would like to continue based on the agenda. So I believe, David, it is your turn to speak, and then Pat, you will be next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Megan has mentioned in the presentation, our business has grown and our business has changed. The purpose of the additional land is to store inventory. Our business is very much having inventory. Our customers, what they order is not something that is predictable. We don't receive forecasts. We don't receive, it's not like building a car when you know how many doors and how many seats and how many tires that your customers will order. So we need to have inventory in place to satisfy our customers, and that's the real purpose of this land, so that we can be more responsive to our growing customer requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Pat, would you like to? It's your turn, Pat. Go ahead. And forgive me for not allowing it earlier. Go ahead. You want to take yourself off mute, Pat, please.
There we go. Thank you, and sorry about that. And good evening, and I'm new at this and learning a lot as I listen to David and also to Megan. I am a joining landowner, and I've been watching Quikrete as they took over the old Blair gravel pit well over these last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. And I hear a lot about and can appreciate their economic needs, but I'm one of 21 people that live along Roseville Road within a kilometer of what they do today. And I am very interested in how they're allowed to operate and under what bylaws they're operating on as they move forward with more expansion. I wonder about how they will landscape and protect all of us from the dust. I have extreme light pollution that I can see that's about 1,000 feet away, and it's just as bright as day. So I would love the opportunity to work with Quikrete to protect us adjacent landowners. I would love to understand what their operating hours are allowed to be, as they tend to operate weekends and night times, and they don't work during the day. So I don't know how that all fits into what the township plans for a rural piece of property. And I don't see how we can expect a rural property to accommodate an industrial operation very easily, but I hope that we can. And I look forward to answers to my questions and my concerns as this moves forward. That's it.
Thank you, Pat. CEO McNeely, who would she be in touch with to get some of these answers?
So, Madam Mayor, this is part of the review process that's underway. As Mr. McCall identified, if council approves the temporary use bylaw, there would also be an implementing amendment to the existing Quikrete site plan. So some of the issues that have been raised related to lighting, drainage, dust control, landscaping would be captured in that site plan process. So it takes the activity and brings forward the implementation aspects. And then obviously through the agreement, there's an obligation for the owner to move forward in that regard. So, we've made those, the comments have been made known. They've also been provided to council today in writing. And so Mr. McCall and Megan, I'm sure will be in contact to identify how, both through zoning and through the future site plan, some of the concerns that have been raised as it relates to the Quikrete operation can be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Pat.
I just want to say, in the meantime, would it be, who would I talk to about existing Quikrete plant and the operating hours as applies to the noise bylaw?
Go ahead, CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, the manufacturing facility is not governed by the noise bylaw. There's no restrictions in that regard. Now, Mr. Salidas, through Quikrete, has undertaken certain testing in compliance with Ministry of the Environment, Conservation, and Parks requirements. Those works were undertaken through the summer and early fall of 2020, and I believe has received now approvals from the ministry in terms of operating licenses. We understood that there was a historic concern about some aspects of the existing processing facility, and Mr. Salidas was agreeable to undertake those reviews and testing. They were submitted to the ministry, who is the licensing approval agency, and the ministry has issued operating licenses for those items. So perhaps Mr. Salidas would be able to review with you what those changes were and how it's affected their performance as it relates to noise and dust associated with the processing aspect in their current manufacturing facilities.
Mr. Salidas, would you be willing to discuss some things like, for instance, the lighting? Could the lighting be angled in such a way that it does not leave your property, that it's angled towards your property rather than outward? And I don't know, I'm not saying you do leak outward, but I just wondered if, and again, you don't have to answer tonight, sir. And the other thing again is backup vehicles at night. I have the email with regards to the noise from the backup in the night. Can I know one of the aggregate industries did something because it was the same thing for them, and I can't remember what they did, and I apologize for that. But can you maybe deal with that issue as well to make it easier for the neighbors?
Yeah, we'll look at all of the issues that have been brought forward. We actually proactively have dealt with a lot of these things. The noise study, or it's called an AAR report, that we completed, that Mr. McNeely had mentioned. We completed that last year, and it was approved by the Ministry of Environment. We also updated our environmental compliance with respect to emissions into the atmosphere. It was not required. We weren't required to conduct any updates to stricter environmental requirements by the province of Ontario until 2023. We decided that we would do it last summer the same time we did the noise study. And we met the requirements in terms of admissions as well.
Thank you. So no further comments. I'm going to open it now to Councillor, and I'm going to come back to Councillor McCreary to carry on with her comments.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. Through you to Sia McNeely. I just wanted to clarify what you were saying about the regional official plan. Like currently, the countryside is protected from further expansion of industrial operations. And I guess you're saying that it's been recognized that there's actually kind of, it's too restrictive, or there's an error that's going to be corrected next round, which is currently taking place right now.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor McCreary, if I may. Yes, the region, partly attributed to the presentations of Quikrete with both township staff and regional officials in 2019 and 2020, it was identified that the current policies had consequences by choice of words. And it basically said no expansion, and it, by its reference, penalized existing businesses that had already been located historically outside of settlement areas, such as the Quikrete site on Whistle Bear Road. The region believes, and something that I support, that there has to be some sort of recognition to allow businesses to adapt over time as conditions change and evolve. Each of those expansions should be assessed on its merits. However, the policy framework doesn't even allow that discussion. So what was proposed for Quikrete and the risk that they're taking is that they're pursuing the temporary use bylaw to allow business continuity for up to a 3-year period. And the hope is on their part that in the fullness of time, that policy will be revisited. There will be the ability for them to bring forward an expansion proposal and to go through a rezoning process once the official plan policies are in place. The risk is that that policy is not approved by either the regional council and or the province of Ontario, who actually approves a regional official plan. And Quikrete will be back to where they are today.
Councillor, other questions? Oh, see, Councillor McCreary, would you like to respond?
Well, I do have another comment or question I could make.
I'll ask the other councillors first, because that's your first one, and you get 2. So any other councillors like to make a comment? Seeing none, oh, Councillor Gillespie.
I was a little concerned about the pond that's in this location. What's happening with that?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Gillespie. So the pond is being reshaped and would be physically oriented in a north-south orientation along the common lot line, extending from Whistle Bear Road southerly to the midpoint of the property. And the balance of the property then would be regraded to accommodate a smooth transition surface to allow parking of vehicles, including tractor trailers, as well as goods and materials associated with the processing aspect, which is occurring on the Quikrete property as we know it today.
Okay. Seeing none others, Councillor McCreary, you're back up.
Just a comment about the rehabilitation of this gravel pit in general. I read through GSP's report, and they were commenting on the fact that this temporary use isn't resulting in the loss of any agricultural land because it was not planned to return the site to agricultural use anyway. But I'm just wondering, what would this have been returned to if it, upon rehabilitation, if it had not, if it doesn't get turned into an industrial zoning?
CEO McNally.
So the broader Blair Pit property in its sum, remembering that what we're speaking today is a small portion of that larger land holding. The majority of the extraction that occurred there in the past was below the groundwater table. And as such, it's impractical to return significant portions of the property back to an agricultural state because of the historic permissions and the license permissions that allowed extraction below the groundwater table. So the property will have to be rehabilitated. It just won't be going back to an agricultural use.
Councillor Rollerman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just wanted to follow up then on the point that I think Councilor McCreary was making and that the CAO answered. Has this site surrendered their ARA license in order then to move from being zone Z14? I'm just trying to understand how this works, because as the mayor knows, a lot of gravel pits are not being taxed at the proper rate, and yet they are undergoing industrial operations. So here's an industrial operation operating on a Z14 site, presumably paying lower taxes, and now they're finding a loophole in order to expand their operations and not have surrendered their license. And there's a whole bunch of things going on here which I'm concerned about, and I think that the township is losing a lot of tax dollars because these operations are using these loopholes.
CEO McNally.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rollman. So there's no loopholes being pursued here. The owner will have to have a partial amendment to the existing aggregate license to allow for the activities that have been summarized tonight to occur on that approximate 9.5 acre parcel of land. The balance of the site will continue to be zone Z14, and the current parameters and restrictions and obligations of the owner would continue to apply consistent with the existing ARA license. As I mentioned a moment ago in the previous inquiry, the township provides to MPAC all development applications upon approval. So temporary use bylaws, zoning bylaws, consent applications, and the like are all filed with MPAC. So they have current information as it relates to permissions, improvements, or future opportunities as it applies to properties throughout the township, including this approximate 9.5 acre site that will have the temporary use bylaw. MPAC takes all of that information and then is responsible to reassess the property based on the permissions, in this case, zoning, and put a value on this 9.5 acre property. And then we would receive what's called a supplementary notice, which would be the change in the assessed value for this 9.5 acre parcel for the period of the temporary use bylaw.
Okay, no other questions from anyone else. I will give, this will be the third time, I think, Councillor Rollerman, so go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the only reason why I'm questioning this is because I would assume that the original pond that they were talking about relocating would have been filed as part of their rehabilitation plan with the original ARA license. So I just want to understand, I don't know if this is something Megan has to explain or the CAO, but how can they just change their ARA plan like this when this is what was, the idea was that you're supposed to relinquish your license, rehabilitate the site, and then pursue further activities? How are we able to now suspend the ARA plan and not have to rehabilitate it and not have to put this pond in place? I just understand the mechanism at work here.
So there will be a pond. It will just be shaped differently than what was originally proposed in the site rehabilitation. The grading profile needs to be altered to allow for the interface between the existing Quick Creek site and the parking storage area that's being proposed on this 9.5 acre parcel. This was being done in part to allow for the movement between the storage yard and the manufacturing buildings, which are on the adjacent property, and to minimize the number of driveways out onto Whistle Bear Road and the movement of vehicles basically driving out onto Whistle Bear Road to go from one property to another. And so by having them interconnected between the two areas, it was to mitigate or minimize conflicts on Whistle Bear Road itself.
I also believe the Butler Pit, which is still under their license, was before the regulations and therefore is grandfathered and does not have to follow the regulations to a T. I could have that wrong. C.L. McNeely's giving me the eyebrow.
So they have updated their license,
Okay.
but it's not to a standard if there was an application for a new pit brought forward in 2021 as an example. But they were obligated several years ago to make adjustments to their rehabilitation program, as well as the final terms and conditions for the surrendering of their license.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner that PD report 18-2021 be received and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And now you do the dance again, Ms. Sage, and move people in and out. Good night, folks. Thank you.
Bye.
Ms. Sage, please advise when we're ready.
Okay, we're good to go, Mayor Foxton.
Thank you. I'd like to state that notice was given to the adjacent property owners in regards to this issue, which is PD report number PD 19-2021, proposed telecommunication tower for 1091 New Dundee Road. The clerk will record everyone who has commented on this file, attended and/or have registered with the clerk's division to attend the meeting this evening. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. I'd now like to introduce the applicant, which is Letitia Evans, giving the presentation. Is that right, Letitia? Did I say it right? Are they here?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I will be speaking on behalf of Leticia.
Okay.
I'm her colleague. My name is Dominic Claros. Leticia is, I believe, listening in, but I will be presenting.
Thank you.
I'm just going to try to share my screen very quickly. Okay, I believe it should be
Yep, we
shared.
can see it. Yep.
Okay, awesome. So Madam Mayor, councillors, staff, and members of the public, thank you for taking the time tonight to meet and review our proposal, our updated presentation. As you are aware, we're proposing, Shared Tower Corporation is proposing a telecommunication tower at 1091 New Dundee Road in North Dumfries. I'm going to kind of skim along quickly that way as to not kind of spend too much time on the presentation to allow for questions and answers at the end. In a brief overview, Shared Tower Corporation is a third-party tower provider. They specialize in building towers for internet service providers as well as national telecommunications companies. They'll build the tower, maintain it, work with the planners of the national wireless carriers and the local and national internet service providers, wireless service internet providers, to provide service to the gaps in the networks and to the gaps in the internet offered to the community. That was just a quick summary of who Shared Tower Corp is. This is our site proposal here. So this is what was originally proposed. We're proposing a self-support tower. Originally, it was almost going to be like a Eiffel Tower shaped proposal, wide at the base, and it slims down. After our initial discussion with the planning team and our initial public consultation, we revised the proposal to be a slimline tower that you'll see in future slides. This is the proposal on the property. It's just tucked into the rear and side of the garage on the property. This is a high level view of the property and the proposed location. Next, I'll take you through some the existing telecommunication towers in the area, along with the coverage plots designed by our engineers, or third-party engineers, should I say, in working with the planners of these national carriers. To the northeast of the proposed tower is a tower up on the hill that I think is very recognizable, where Bell is located. Bell and Rogers, sorry. To the closer to the highway, to the southeast is a Rogers Tower, and to the west is a Bell Tower. Here are our coverage plots. This is a before a justification of the coverage that's currently existing. As you can see, there's a gap of coverage for Bell and Rogers, Freedom Mobile as well, where the tower is being proposed. As you can see, the Bell Tower to the west, the Bell Tower to the northeast provide coverage, but there's an inadequate level of coverage in between these towers. There's an inadequate level of coverage in between these towers, and our proposal is to seek to help enhance the network. As you can see here, these are our coverage plots with the proposed tower location would provide cellular coverage and internet coverage to the residents in the area, as well as down North Dumfries or New Dundee Road heading west. These are our site renderings. So in working with our engineers, our construction team, the planners of the national carriers, we originally had proposed a larger tower. We reduced it to this current tower after meeting with having our public consultation, our public open house, and hearing the feedback from local residents regarding the tower. And since then, more recently in the last month, we've been working hard to reduce the tower height, reduce the style, reduce the width, the size, change the style altogether. So this is what was currently proposed as of 3 months ago in our public open house. So as you can see in this view, there's a slimlined version of the tower. So it's still a self-support tower, meaning it has 3 legs at the base. It kind of forms an Eiffel Tower type viewscape. This is a view from Dodge Drive. And you'll see in our further on in our presentation, the new style that we're proposing. So this is another view from Dodge Drive. As you can see, the peak of the tower comes above the tree line. This is originally was proposed a 65 meter tower, then reduced to 60 meters. And you'll see further along our reduced height tower again. So this is a view from Cameron Road, which is about 1.3 kilometers west of our location. And as mentioned, our public consultation period took place in November through December. We held a public meeting where we had numerous comments before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting regarding the location, the style, the height based on the location. So since then, we've been working hard to try to update our proposal. We've finally been able to, in working with the carriers and their network needs, and our engineers come up with a updated proposal of what we would like to present to the public and to council, to the planning team. We tried to have everything ready ahead of time. Our plans just came through, and we've been working hard up until the last minute, up until even today, to kind of formalize everything with the construction team, with the engineers, to work with the planners of the carriers to make sure that we put forward our best proposal for the public. This new proposal is a 40-meter slimline monopole. This is a to-scale rendering of what the new pole would look like on the property. This pole would be reduced quite a bit in height, almost a third from a third of the height from our last proposal, and more than a third from our original proposal, as well as the width. You can see, even compared to a regular monopole, it is quite a bit slimmer, with antennas at the top that are flush mounted and painted to match the style of the monopole, which will blend in to the skyline quite a bit more than the previously proposed in our original proposal and even our updated proposal. This is a view map here presented so that we can just to get a better idea of what the most recent proposal of this monopole would look like from these locations. So as you can see, the last two views here are view 3 and 4 are both on Dodge Drive. View 1, which we just saw, and I believe I'll flip to again, is directly in front of the property. And view number 2 was the panoramic view that we'll take a look at again from Cameron Road, which is about 1.3 kilometers away directly, in direct line, sorry. So again, this is view 1 of directly in front of the property. As you can see, the sight line is quite a bit better. Aesthetically, it's a lot more pleasing. It takes up a lot less room both at the base and surrounding the pole. This is a view 2. It was tough to even see the first tower from Cameron Road, but with the updated height and color and slimness of this pole, it becomes as close to blending in and invisible to the eye as possible from this area. This is a view from Dodge Drive. So as you can see here, I'm not sure if you're able to see my mouse, but it's directly below the end of monopole is where the pole would be located, just above the trees to the left of the barn or the garage there. That would be the location of the monopole. So as you can see, the visual impact from Dodge Drive is greatly reduced, and it helps blend into the sightline of the area while delivering the network coverage to the entire area down New Dundee Road, while blending into the area sightline as much as possible. This is our last rendering from Dodge Drive. The reason we selected the height of this pole was, as you can see, the pole, because of the angle of the trees, or because of the height of the trees, and the angle from which you drive and which you are located in your house, it renders the tower invisible from this portion of Dodge Drive. And that's something we really wanted to look to do for the area residents, was to, and that's actually why it took such a long time to develop this updated proposal, was our engineers needed to go out, conduct different measurements from different areas in order to properly blend this in as much as possible to the area. So that is our updated proposal, is the slimline monopole at 1091 New Dundee Drive. And this is the area we're looking to improve for the network coverage in the immediate area of this portion of North Dumfries. I'm happy to answer any questions. Leave my presentation open, or I can remove it and answer any questions, whatever is easier.
Thank you. Could you please take your presentation down?
Absolutely.
Because I have to ask the members of the public now for their comments.
Oh, sure.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Amir Crown, lawyer, are you there?
Good afternoon, good evening, Your Worship.
So it's your turn, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. So my name is Dr. Amir Crown. I have been retained by Mr. Keith Vermeer, who is the immediately adjacent property owner to the site of the tower in question. So if one imagines the site of the tower, Mr. Vermeer's property is immediately to the west of that. And the way we've divided, mindful of time, the way we've divided our presentation today is I will speak to what I would say are the regulatory aspects of the proposal, and Mr. Vermeer will speak more about the personal aspects, with your leave, Your Worship. I guess at the outset, I do want to note that my friend from Land Squared, his presentation, it highlights a concern we have about Land Squared constantly shifting the goalposts, because my friend did indicate that up until today, their presentation was being updated. And I'm not sure how it can be said for fairness and transparency purposes that one holds a public consultation 3 months ago, but is still continuously updating that proposal. One would hope that the proposal that you sought the public's input on would in fact be the proposal that goes to council, but that is not what you heard today. I put a pin in that, and Your Worship, with your leave, I would like to share my screen.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I do want to start with a point of reference being the township's telecommunication tower protocol, because that was included within the public documents circulated. And obviously it's a well-known protocol to the township itself, but for the benefit of the public and my friend at Land Square, I did want to highlight some things from that protocol as a starting point, because the township indicates that these are the guidelines to be followed when evaluating proposals of this sort. And the tower protocol has preferred location guidelines and then general location guidelines. So if one looks at the preferred location guidelines, in my respectful view, the proposal by Land Squared, it at least tramples, if not violates, 4 of the 5 of those preferred location guidelines. So co-location on an existing facility, my friend drew your attention to the Pinnacle Hill facility. New locations on an existing facility, again, Pinnacle Hill. Away, 120 meters away from residential areas. So when we submitted, Mr. Vermeer and myself submitted our submissions to the township, we measured the distance effectively to his back door, but the township's protocol speaks to residential areas, period. And so the fact that the proposed tower is immediately on the adjoining property, it clearly violates that 120-meter rule, because it is, as I say, immediately on the opposing property. But even if one were to ignore that, there is still the significant areas of marshland and wetland that surround Mr. Vermeer's, the south of Mr. Vermeer's property and the south of the proposed tower's location. And so those, as far as we are aware, are protected wetlands. So it either violates the residential area aspect or the protected wetlands aspect. And again, item 4, same situation, monopoles with co-location capability, at least 120 meters away from residential areas. This is a pole in the middle of a residential area. So it clearly violates, in our respectful view, the preferred location guidelines. But even if one were to say that's merely preferred, the township has general guidelines, in our respectful view, again, it violates at least half of those protocols, because there are existing communication facilities and towers, and the use of that or the amplification of those facilities is not addressed. And new communication towers, again, will be strongly discouraged. Again, residential areas and other sensitive areas and/or designated heritage buildings and sites. So in our view, either the proposed location violates a majority of the preferred location guidelines, or equally, it violates at least half of the general location preferences. And so I just want to start with that because there is a competing tower, I would say in quotes, at 1535, and the 1535 tower proposal, in our view, does not suffer from much of these drawbacks because it's not a residential area and so on. But I put that there because it is useful for comparison, because when one looks at township's protocol, it raises the question of the viability of this from a protocol perspective and the viability of the proposal in light of the fact that there is a competing, arguably much better suited tower at 1535, which I understand will be discussed later tonight. So mindful of time, I have truncated our presentation. The township does have the benefit of the entire presentation, but I did want to start with, again, just indicating what my friend from Land Squid has already hinted, that the tower, at least on paper, has legs. So the tower does seem to move from where the yellow star was, which is well away from any residential area, to the proposal shows the red star, and now it has crept up to where the red circle is. And this is, we're trying to demonstrate here not only the scope creep, as I would call it, but we're also trying to demonstrate that any way you slice this, it is still a tower in a residential area, and it is still at least a tower that is originally was planned for protected wetlands. So it at least, even in the original proposal, violated the protocol against that. So we put that there because it is hard, understandably, for the public or even I as counsel to advise a client on a proposal that's constantly shifting. And there's a lot of fine print here. You can ignore the fine print. And the purpose of this slide really is, again, to demonstrate the existing Pinnacle Hill Tower, which the use of that or technologies to amplify the range of that not explored, and then the competing 1535 tower, which does not have many of the drawbacks of being in a residential area or protected wetlands and so on, and in fact doesn't have any objection to it at all, except for someone indicating that their property value might decrease, as opposed to this current proposal, which has several items of objection.
Emir,
So we indicate.
Excuse me, Emir, you have a 5-minute presentation. You've already exceeded your 5 minutes. If you could wrap it up, please.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't sure if time was being counted, so I will end on this slide, because what we demonstrate in this slide, and Mr. Vermeer is the professional engineer, so he knows better than I, but the proposed tower site, if one looks at the elevation, it is in fact proposed at the lowest elevation in the region, whereas the Pinnacle Hill site and the 1535 tower site are at much higher elevations, and one would think that for a telecommunications tower, one puts it at a higher elevation just to start with. So even the location per se we submit is a bit suspect, but mindful of time, I leave it there, and I welcome any questions, but I do turn it over to Mr. Vermeer for his presentation.
Thank you. And Keith Vermeer is next. Keith?
Thank you. Can you see me okay and hear me?
Yep. Yep.
All right. I'm just going to obviously thank you everybody for just taking the time tonight to kind of talk through this. I just wanted to share just my personal reflection on the proposed tower. I will share my screen here. I just have a few slides to kind of walk through. So just bear with me 1 second as I pull this up. Can you see my screen there? It might not be perfect, but you can kind of. So, judging by the smile on your face there, you can see my children, right? So we're the directly impacted family and residents there. We have 10 girls, my wife and I. 10 girls, 4 girls aged 10 and under. Sorry, mixing up my words there, but as a parent, yes. One can argue that the health concerns and whatnot are inconclusive, but is that something that I want over my head over the next, 15 years as these kids grow up and us in this area with a cell tower near us that close? So that's something that, I have to live with if the tower is moved ahead with. Just in terms of the physical proximity to the tower, and this is based on the data that I had prior to the revised proposal that was presented today, that tower, and I did my best here based on Google Maps, if you kind of see the red lines there are indicative of if the tower was to lay on its side, that's the range it would span across. And it would actually span across my property into my adjacent neighbor's property, Joseph. So you can kind of see that span, obviously with it being 40 meters is a bit different, but there's still an impact. And an update to this, the yellow circle in the middle has been updated with a pool. It's a play area. It's just that it's a new space now that we like to spend outside. The other thing I'd like to share, and one of the things around all the renderings, it's great to show it from other different angles, but why not show it from the angle that's the most impacted? Like, this is from our house. I had to draw my own rendering of what the tower might look like. And it's not pretty. And in all fairness, it's going to impact property value no matter which way you look at it. I don't know if any of you would, shopping for a house, actually consider something that large behind it and actually want to put an offer on it. So that is something that, I don't want to have to deal with. And then visual impact, I just wanted to give this as a bit of a representation. This is where our family eats every day. We'd be looking at that window, at that tower every single day, reminding us of the fact that it's there. So I know in the summer that tree will be leaved. We'll see it. It'll be somewhat hidden from this view, but we live in Canada. The trees only have leaves for roughly 4 months. So we'll see that most of the time. So I guess in conclusion, I challenge the community really for the need of the tower. And if there is in fact a need to thoroughly explore other alternatives, whether it's the proposed tower up the road, the existing Pinnacle Tower, where we actually get our internet from off today, and how I made it on this call, and even other farmland that's all around us. There's plenty of farmland that we can take and not take, but use and take advantage of. Technology is also rapidly changing, and I can challenge a little bit the relevance of a cell tower. Especially 3 to 5 years from now. And once it's built, it's really not going anywhere. It's going to be stuck there. So I just wanted to get that out there, put that out there for everyone to kind of hear. And I do appreciate your time to listen to my presentation here. So thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Dom, you've already spoken, although you're down as another speaker. So we're going to ask Jan. Is Jan here? Can we take your presentation down, please, Keith?
Yes, certainly. Sorry.
Thank you. Do we have Jan? I don't see Jan. Is Jan here, Cynthia? Or Ashley?
Jan is watching on YouTube.
Okay. Diane and David Silcher, do they want to speak? Diane and David?
Hi. We're not directly affected by the tower near Keith's place, but we realize that is very, very close to their home. The one that more affects us is the one at 1535 New Dundee Road.
Which doesn't really
affect us. Doesn't affect us either, but it's just the idea of having that so close to someone's home is very scary.
Okay, thank you. And Joseph, I believe you're next. Would you like to speak? You're on mute, Joseph. Joseph, you're on mute. Joseph, do you see the microphone with the line through it? If you click on that, it'll take you off mute. Do you see the little microphone with the line through it? There you go.
How's that?
Isn't that better? All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. Yes, I'm Joseph Weiner. I live at 1113 New Dundee Road in what has been our family home since 1977. My father and I had a considerable hand in building it. We expanded it in 1995, and it was always his dream and my dream that the very large house now and large property would be enjoyed by children and grandchildren for many years. That dream has now evaporated with what I can only call the nightmare announcement that this tower, now I think it's 13-story tower, would be constructed virtually in my backyard. So about 140 meters from where my grandchildren would be sleeping, where my family lives. Of course, we're closer to that tower than anybody except our neighbors, the Vermeer family, with their 4 young children. So aside from the overwhelming visual intrusion of this thing, whether we're in a front yard or backyard, with its red light on top, and some of the pictures we saw from great distances really don't reflect what we would see daily. But there's something else, I think, that we cannot ignore. And so we should maybe repeat the phrase that we've heard a number of times over the past year, albeit for a different reason, and that is follow the science. Follow the science, okay? So the group called Physicians for Safe Technology did follow the science and wrote, quote, "The majority of published studies in different countries have shown a relationship between distance from base stations and a variety of health complaints." And this is all over the place, and it just takes a minimum amount of effort to find this kind of data. It's late. I'm only going to mention, if I may, 5 short studies. There was Zothia Zama in 2017. This is a study in India by Zothia Zama and others, and researchers examined abnormalities in blood samples in people living at different distances from cell towers. They identified a significant increase in blood cell damage in those living within 80 meters, that would be the Vermeers, of a cell tower versus those living greater than 300 meters from a cell tower. And then Mio in 2018, a recent controlled 2-year scientific study examining the neurological effects on children aged 13 to 16 in schools with nearby cell towers revealed significant decline in cognitive scores when the radiation from the cell towers were high, but still at non-thermal levels. So, of course, the children in these studies were exposed about 5 hours a day for 5 days a week, unlike anybody living in the Vermeer house or in my house who would be exposed whenever we're at home. Wolf and Wolf, 2004, investigated the cancer rates versus distance from cell towers in small towns in Israel. He found the rate of cancer incidence was 129 cases per 10,000 persons per year in those living within 350 meters of a cell tower, and then another rate of about 1/6 of that if you living with greater than 350 meters. 2 more. Dode, 2011, performed a 10-year study examining the distance from cell towers and cancer clusters. He and his colleagues found a highly significant increase in cancers in those living within 500 meters of the cell tower. And finally, Pierce M. Environmental Research in 2019 looked at a whole bunch of studies and concluded, quote, "To minimize negative health effects of cellular phone towers, a 500-meter buffer is recommended around schools, hospitals, and homes." And there's so much more of this from all over the world. Now, I know, and what we heard from Land Square, Safety Code 6, we're following Safety Code 6, and so we're doing all right. Well, another group looked at Safety Code 6 and pointed out that about 40% of the world's population lives in areas where they have stricter standards than Safety Code 6, that the Safety Code has undergone no significant changes in the last 30 years. And so to rely on Safety Code 6 always struck me as sort of the Nuremberg defense, which was tried with limited success during the Nuremberg trials after the Second World War, which is not my problem. My superiors say this is okay. Safety Code 6 says it's okay, so we can ignore all this other stuff. So I know we saw the picture of the tower, and it's kind of empty, and the company naturally will want to put as much on there as they can because that's how rates are paid. So it will no doubt in time contain a number of different antennae and transmitters and parabolic transmitters and so forth. Now, most of this will be apparently 4G. We've already been told 5G is coming. And so we will have a whole combination of different devices, different frequencies, different modes. And I don't think anybody can say with a straight face that they know confidently that this will not be injurious to people close by, especially when the Vermeers are 80 meters, we're about 140 meters, a tiny fraction of the 500 meters that many studies are now recommending. Now, I was the one who mentioned indirectly in one of these slides, when I said to Keith, my neighbor, I detest so much that this thing will be just outside my window virtually. And when I look straight out in my backyard, my property extends for about 950 meters. I said, I would gladly donate the land, give it to the township or whoever, you can have it free, and donate the access roads if the tower, instead of being this close to you and me, were put at the end of my property. That's how much I was willing to, and nobody would have to pay me. I wouldn't be making a healthy monthly income from this thing. I just wanted it away from me and my family and my grandchildren. So yeah, how did this happen? Now, if we're told, okay, we really need more cell towers, and
Joseph?
That's apparently up for, yes.
You're 5
I'm sorry,
minutes.
am I over?
5 minutes. Can you wind up, please? Because you're 5
Okay,
minutes.
thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yes, so yeah, if we really need this, why the two of us, Keith and I and our family, seem to be the only ones who have to sacrifice here to the benefit and profit of a lot of others. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And now, Council, it is your turn. Councilors, comments or questions?
Say again? Oh.
I'm asking my councilors now. It's their turn to ask any questions or comments. Council McCreary.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. I read through our guidelines on where a preferred location is for these cell towers, and I noticed that 120 meter guideline where we would like the tower to be at least 120 meters away from residential areas. And I noticed that the distance between the two houses to the west of the tower was not provided with any of the information that Land Square had submitted. So I actually asked our planner, Shahid, if he would get that information for me, and he did contact Land Squared. And these figures are coming from Land Squared. I asked specifically how far are the personal residences from the base of the tower, and for the property immediately to the west, Mr. Vermeer's property, it was only 96 meters. And for Mr. Werner's property, which is the second house to the west, it was 125 meters. So our guidelines say 120 meters. Now, the one house is about 5 meters out, but still it's significant. We have here two existing private residences that are very close to this tower, and one is well within our 120 meter guideline. So I'm concerned that this tower is going to have a significant negative impact on the enjoyment of properties, both the Werner and the Vermeer properties. So I'm hoping that we can find an alternative location for this cell tower.
Thank you. And any other councilors wish to comment? Councilor Osner.
I tend to agree with Councilor McCreary because I feel that if the tower is going to go up, we have to take into consideration the local residents. We have boundary limits. We need to stick by them. We don't want to set any precedents by cutting anything short. And we don't want any of the local residents to feel that we're making concessions on certain towers that's going to affect their livelihood.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, councillors? I have one myself, Dom, basically on your report. When you first showed the pictures and you showed the larger tower, it was against a blue background. Then you showed a white tower against white clouds and said you could hardly see it. I wondered what it would look like if it was against the blue sky. So that's just a comment. It was not, I did duly note that it was a white tower against a white clouds and therefore not as visible as if it would have been a white tower against a blue sky. If there are no other comments, then can we have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
So moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that report PD 19-2021 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you, and thank you all for attending tonight. You may, Ms. Sage will let you out of the meeting so that we can bring the next group in. Good night. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apparently they kicked me out of the meeting and they let me come back in. Trying to tell me something. Do we have our next group ready?
Yes, I believe we're good to go.
Thank you. So report number 6.4, PD 6.4, report number PD-20-2021, proposed telecommunication tower for 1535 New Dundee Road. Notice was given to the adjacent property owners. The clerk will record everyone who has commented on this file, attended and or have registered with the clerk's division to attend the meeting this evening. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. I'd now like to introduce the applicant who will be presenting his application. Brendan, Municipal Planner for Fontour International Inc. And Ferdinand Stab will also be in attendance. So Brendan, you're up. There's Brendan, yeah. Welcome.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to have me here. If I could just get my screen up here, sharing it, and then I can pull the presentation up. So hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Brendan, and again, I'm the planner working at Fontour International, representing Signum Wireless's interest in a proposed telecommunication tower in North Dumfries at 1535 New Dundee Road. So Fontour is a planning consultancy company that specializes in telecommunication towers, and we've been hired by Signum Wireless to oversee the planning process for the application. Now, in the interest of saving time, this presentation was from our public consultation meeting, so I'm just going to gloss over some of these slides. So this presentation will show more information about what wireless networks are, and I'll be discussing the specifics of the project, such as the site selection process, the planning application status, and the tower design, some of which I'm, again, may gloss over in the interest of time. Just some background about Signum Wireless. So Signum Wireless is a Canadian third-party tower builder for wireless industries. Many of the towers that Signum constructs, including the one proposed in North Dumfries, allows for co-location, meaning that up to 3 carriers may locate their services on a single tower. And the mission and goal of Signum Wireless is to reduce tower proliferation by strategically locating well-placed and designed sites. So I'll touch base on these slides a little bit. So just some general background information on wireless networks. So wireless networks can be thought of as interconnected parts with base stations and antennas working together to create a network. When providing their services, these networks create coverage areas which provide telecommunication services. And when adequately placed, they provide continuous wireless service to an area. Unfortunately, these networks only service a fixed number of calls and data requests at a time. And if there's an increased number of calls, for instance, the network's capacity is reduced to provide service just to the closest signal requests. So to solve these problems and to provide adequate telecommunication services, these gaps need to be filled by constructing new telecommunication towers. So why build a new tower? So wireless technologies is responsible for delivering a lot of essential communication services, as you can see on the slide there. And in order to provide wireless communication services, each carrier must have their own wireless network. So in this application, Signum Wireless is proposing a 50-meter monopole telecommunication tower, which will be located, as you can see on the image below. This slide breaks down the planning process, but I'll just gloss over that as we are in council right now. So this tower was actually previously approved in 2013 before Innovation, Science, and Economic Development's client procedure, sorry, I'm forgetting the word, but code was established, but we are going through the application process again at the request of the township. So it's the township's decision whether they provide concurrence for this tower, but the final approval authority is Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. So this telecommunication tower is to address the lack of telecommunication infrastructure in the area. So these towers are the closest towers to our proposed site. There is a bell tower approximately 3.8 kilometers west, and the antenna height is at approximately 48 meters. There is a Rogers and Bell tower 3.9 kilometers northeast, and the height of the antennas is approximately 75 meters. And then there is another Rogers tower 2.9 kilometers southeast, and the height of those antennas are at approximately 50 meters. So as a result of this lack of infrastructure in the area, Signum Wireless has anticipated the need for wireless coverage in this area, which has been confirmed by Freedom's interest in locating on the tower, as well as we have entered preliminary talks with Bell and a company called Sigfox Canada that does business in the Internet of Things. Signum Wireless had opened a search ring within this area to identify potential property owners to host this tower. And during the site acquisition phase of our works, there were several factors that played into the site selection over other options. So as you can see, this property is directly in the middle of the two towers immediately east and west, as shown on the picture here. The topography of the area also puts us on top of a hill, which gives us better coverage and allows a shorter height for the tower. It is my understanding that also there's a Strasbourg Road that is going to be constructed nearby. So this tower will also provide coverage along another corridor of travel. And also this siting doesn't put our tower directly behind any residential homes. On this slide, you can see the proposed tower simulation that we prepared when we first applied to the town. This is a 50-meter monopole constructed for multiple carriers, and the view is from New Dundee looking west towards the tower. So in conclusion, wireless service in North Dumfries is in need of upgrading to serve current and future needs. And this one tower will be able to accommodate up to 3 carriers, preventing tower proliferation in and around the area. Thank you. That is the end of my presentation. Again, this is just the contact information for anyone from the public who wanted to comment on this project.
Thank you, Brendan. Can you take your screen down, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is Diane and David Silcher here? Would they like to speak?
We're sort of in the middle of the 2 towers proposed. The one down the hill is the one where our grandchildren live. And the one up the hill, which is the one that Brendan is now proposing, is the much preferred location for us, simply because we do not want our grandchildren sitting under a tower.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Diane or Ed?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Council members, anything you'd like to comment? Any thoughts? So David, can you guarantee that whoever goes on that tower will give us better internet in our Roseville area? Okay, that's another talk for another time. I see no other conversations, so can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor Rolliman, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that report PD 20-2021 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you, and thank you all for attending tonight.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night. So we will go ahead with the confirmatory bylaw because we don't need everybody out to do that. Go ahead.
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolliman that bylaw number 3235-21, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on March 23rd, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Mayor Foxton, your vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yeah. Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Thought you were going to say no for a minute there, Councillor McCreary. And the adjournment, please.
Moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Osner, that whereas business before this public planning meeting has been completed at 10:22 p.m. And be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on Monday, April 12th at 6 p.m. for Committee of the Whole. Mayor Foxton, your vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries and we are adjourned.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.